Mayor Canos?
Here.
Mr. Donahue?
Here.
Ms. Greenfield?
Here.
Mr. Hammond?
Here.
Mr. O'Day?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Mara?
Here. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News, Courier News, and the Star Ledger, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 11th, 2018. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
We have a number of presentations, and it looks like the American Water Company is going to come up first. You guys here? Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think Anthony told him we have 10 minutes. And is that work for you guys? Oh, she did come.
My name is Neil O'Brien. I'm an attorney from the law firm of Archer and Griner. Represent New Jersey American Water Company throughout the state for projects like this. And this project is, I think some of you are probably somewhat familiar with, is for what the water company refers to as a booster station. There's actually a booster station already on the property, which is block 48, lot 5, but it's a smaller piece of equipment. It's going to be upgraded, and it's going to be housed in a small utility-type building on property that's been, at least it's looked like it's vacant, but has been owned by the water company all the way back to when it was Bernard's Water Company. So I have Frank Marascia from New Jersey American Water Company Operations, and Joe Bongiovanni, who's the civil engineer for the project, and they can speak to this project a lot better than I can. What's your pleasure tonight? Would you like to swear them in, or just have them give you some informal testimony, a description of the project?
We don't need to swear in.
Okay.
It's not a formal hearing.
Got it. Thank you. Well, Frank, if you could come up and explain to, or have a seat if you're more comfortable.
I'll stand.
What are we doing here?
Hi, my name's Frank Marascia. I'm the production manager and licensed operator for the New Jersey American Water Company's Short Hills Essex Passaic water system, which provides water to 24 communities in 4 counties, including Bernardsville and Mendham. Geographically in this area, the water that we supply is supplemented by water that we purchase from the Morris County MUA. We simply don't have enough of our own source of supply to satisfy our customer demand. Recently, the Morris County MUA indicated their desire to terminate their purchase agreement with us. So we will have, once that contract is terminated, we will have a deficit of supply. So this project, along with other ancillary projects, are meant to address that deficit and ensure that we have an adequate supply for all our customers and provide adequate fire protection.
What is the deficit once they pull out? What percentage of the?
It's about 500,000 gallons a day.
What percentage is
Total.
that of the total that's normally?
We normally produce on average about 40 million gallons a day. So whatever but it's geographically in this area.
And how many would you be losing when they terminate?
A half a million gallons a day.
Is there a reason they're terminating the contract? Do they?
They're oversubscribed. What I mean by that is they're committed to provide more water contractually than what they have.
That's a good reason.
Frank, it might be helpful to talk just a little bit about the sort of interplay between the various sources of water and diversity of sources of supply. What goes on a sort of year-to-year basis with producing enough water for folks?
Sure. So the Essex Passaic water system is located, which Bernardsville and Mendham are part of. Parts in the Raritan Basin, parts in the Passaic River Basin. The Passaic River Basin is relatively water poor, which means that we can only divert water from the river to fill our reservoir at certain times, versus the Raritan Basin. We have the Raritan River, which is supplemented by releases from the 2 reservoirs in Hunterdon County. So that's what they call an uninterrupted source of supply. New Jersey American Water Company operates 2 large surface water plants on the Raritan River, and purchases the raw water from the New Jersey Water Supply Authority. So they are guaranteed a source of supply. They have to release water from those 2 reservoirs into the river for the water company to pick up. In the north, we're not as fortunate as that. Our system, roughly about 60% of the water that we provide to our customers is water that we purchase from another source. The other 40% is made up of our surface water supply and our groundwater supply.
So you have to recognize and consider, first of all, where the water is going to come from to feed the overall system, but also geographically where that water is and where it needs to be.
Yes, yeah, we have to ensure a reliable, robust source of supply, and to do that, we have multiple sources that we have to utilize to make sure that we meet our customer demands.
Okay, so I don't want to shoot over our 10 minutes here, but if just basically what is a booster station? Sorry. Go ahead.
What is a booster station?
So water is basically transmitted by pressure, and the cheapest way and the most efficient way is to raise water to an elevated position and then let it flow by gravity down to the customer base. So a booster station pushes water from a lower elevation up to a higher elevation into a tank, and then that tank feeds the community by gravity, which is why during a power outage or a storm, you're guaranteed water coming out of your faucet even though the power's off, because gravity is 24/7, 365.
This booster station that you're installing would take water from our aquifer, or would just be boosting other water?
No, this water would be coming from what we call our central or Raritan system. So this would be coming from the Raritan Basin. It would be primarily treated surface water from the Raritan River.
The Raritan Basin is the one that you said has like an unlimited supply, I think was the term
It has
you used.
I wouldn't say unlimited, but a very robust, reliable supply.
So is our aquifer where people in our town have wells affected by what you're doing here?
No, we're not withdrawing. The source of supply is not coming from this area. We're simply making a conveyance for it to get up here.
And how much bigger is this compared to what's there now?
Well, the location is different from where it's at right now. The reason why this site is preferred is because the existing booster station has to stay in service while we construct the new one. If we were to, right here, right now, today, if I was to turn it off, there would be people that were out of water.
Yeah.
So operationally, we need to keep that in service while we construct the other one.
The people who would be out of service if you turned it off today, where do they live, geographically?
That's the Tower Mountain area.
Yeah.
Within that, there's a little topographic high within that area that's between a lower gradient and a topographic high that's between two lower gradients. There's no tank in that system. So all the water, all the pressure they get are from those pumps running. These improvements, in addition to the booster station, other improvements that we're going to be doing in the area are going to raise the grade line to now absorb that topographic high into one big gradient. So now they'll be fed off the tank and won't require those pumps to be running 24/7 to provide water to them.
What happens to once you've built the new station, you're no longer dependent on the old one? What happens to the old station?
We have some abilities in that station, not only to push water up, but to let water back down during a time of need. Like I said, water is pushed around by gravity and pressure, and you're basically raising water up from one elevation to another elevation, from one tank up to another tank. In addition to having the ability to push it up, you also want to have the ability to let it back down if there's a fire or a main break or some other what we call a demand that we need to satisfy. We need to be able to push water around in several different directions.
Both stations stay in service is the answer to that question, though? Both the new station and the old station will both be in service in the future.
The new station will be in service with the pumps running to push water up. The old station, we have piping and PRVs in there. There'll be nothing motorized, or there'll be nothing running like a pump or anything. There's simply valves that we could let water back down from a higher elevation by gravity if we needed to.
So it stays there,
It stays there, but it's not going to be, the pumps are not going to be running.
How high is the tank?
That I will refer to.
How high is the,
Tank.
there's no tank on this site.
the booster.
It's
Where's the tank?
how tall is the building?
The building is 12 feet to the ceiling, and there's a peak roof to it.
So you need board approval? You'll need board approval?
Yeah, we're permitted conditional use on this property, so we'll be asking for preliminary final site plan approval and conditional use approval, yes. And all the aspects of site design, aesthetics, you know, keeping trees versus, yeah, that'll all be dealt with at the planning board.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to correct what I said before. The deficit would be about 1 million gallons a day, not a 500,000, as I previously stated.
And is there a noise from the new site that we should expect for the people who live in the area?
No, the pumps are relatively quiet. It would be completely enclosed within the building. I mean, unless you're standing next to the building, you wouldn't even know the pumps are running. They're electric motors. There will be an emergency generator for standby power during an emergency, but that would only be running, that'd be a diesel engine, and that would only be running during a power outage to supply power.
It'll be housed in the building also.
The generator is inside.
Does the building have an aesthetic, a certain aesthetic, or is it?
Yeah, I have some boards.
It's still being designed, but we can sort of talk about that. Mr. Bongiovanni, Joe, do you have it?
Is this a good place for this?
That's fine.
That's good.
Maybe as you talk, turn it around so the
Yeah.
members of the
Sure,
public
yep.
can hear and see.
Just real quick, so the site is,
And just before,
Well,
you
Joe
can't
and
hold
us
us to
and then-
this, we're still
Right,
working with the site design. but-
yes.
Yes,
Planning board.
yeah.
right.
Just to give you an idea, it's on a corner piece of property that American Water currently owns. It's between Locust Drive and Oak Ridge Road off Oak Place. The only thing on this property right now is an old booster station that happens to be underground, so it's really not visible if you're driving
Ballpark,
past
where
it.
is that, Joe?
The underground station is right here. So from the site improvement standpoint, it's a small building, it's about 1,000 square feet. We'll need a new access driveway off of Locust Drive. There'll be a bathroom in here, so we'll have to put a septic system in, a small system. Stormwater, we can handle via a seepage pit, dry well.
What kind of site traffic should folks expect when this thing's operational?
These are once a day visits.
Nobody's working in there?
It's not a manned facility, so there should be very little traffic.
There isn't a break room or a kitchen or just a
Nope,
Just
a
a bathroom.
convenience bathroom, yeah.
What's the little building on the upper left there? What is that little?
Up here?
Yeah.
That's a disposal field.
Okay.
Septic system.
So that's underground too.
That's underground. So the only thing you'll see obviously the site driveway and the building itself, and everything else is basically underground.
And Joe, recognizing again that we're still working with the design, obviously it's important to the water company that this building doesn't stand out and
Yes,
doesn't,
we have some
yeah.
renderings of some.
let's
Okay.
show folks those.
You can.
Quick question, the person that's coming once a day, what are they doing? Like, is there something you need to do every day there?
Well, there will be pumps in the building and a whole electrical equipment that just needs to be checked, really. It's just a check. Everything is remotely monitored from the station, so there's always an eye on it, but it's good to have.
There's no chemicals that are being
Yeah.
shed. It's just, we visit all our stations once a day, not only from a safety perspective to see if anything's broken, but also from a security perspective. After 9/11, the big emphasis on critical infrastructure and drinking water is definitely included in that.
And they're driving pickup trucks or other
Yeah, they're
vehicles?
driving, regular pickup truck size vehicles.
Do you then put any security on them if it's?
There'll be door locks and
Fencing, probably be a fence that we want to put around.
usual perimeter security, door locks and
Cameras.
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 And lighting in the immediate vicinity of the building.
Joe, in view of time here, maybe, unless the board would like to see the actual mechanical workings, let's look at the elevation. Sure.
Gonna be
No,
any
actually-
landscaping?
No, we don't have public comment now. Sorry.
Will there be landscaping around it, or
There
just the
will be
fencing?
landscaping, yes.
I don't think we should get into great detail on this, because it's really going before the.
Right, it has to go to the
planning
planning board, so that's,
This
yeah.
is a planning board thing.
So really, I mean, probably the best thing to look at is
It's
the
that.
vendor. of the building.
Okay.
It's, like I said, one story, it's 1,000 square feet about. A few rooms, there'll be a pump room, an electrical room, a generator room, and a restroom.
Are those actual windows, Joe, or they're,
They are full windows.
Yeah, they're not real.
For security, we prefer not to have windows.
purely aesthetic?
Purely
Yeah.
aesthetic, yes.
Okay. Do you have a date at the planning board yet, or?
We don't. We've got to finalize our application and get it submitted. As I said, we're still in the process of working through the ultimate site design. We don't anticipate needing any variances. We think it's going to be a by right preliminary and final site plan and conditional use approval.
Okay, we good? Yes?
Yes.
All right, thank you for coming. And,
Thank you for having us.
explaining it. Thank you. All right, so next we have RideWise Street Smarts campaign. Where's our RideWise people? Here they come. There you are.
So I have a presentation packet that I'll pass out to each.
Hi, Sarah.
Okay. So I'm Sarah Catherine. I'm Community Outreach Coordinator at RideWise. And you might remember that Donna Allison, our Executive Director, and I presented a few months ago on the results of the 2018 Street Smart campaign. So that campaign was so successful that I've been working with Christine and now Jeff and the Bernardsville Police on conducting a 2019 campaign. So this presentation is just to give you the plans for that campaign. So the presentation packet I handed out goes over the Street Smart program, the results of the 2018 campaign, and our plans for 2019. I'm going to be really brief about the Street Smart program and 2018 because I believe you were all on the council at that presentation. So just briefly, Street Smart is a statewide public education, awareness, and behavioral change campaign that promotes safe travel behavior through education and enforcement of pedestrian safety laws. So the campaign focuses on changing pedestrian and driver behavior in order to reduce pedestrian vehicle crashes and make communities safer overall for pedestrians. So the campaign is broken down into several sections: the pre-campaign, the month-long campaign itself, and then the post-campaign. So in the pre and the post-campaign, RideWise staff conducts intersection observations at the target locations where we observe pedestrian and driver behavior, and then we compare pre and post so we can see how behavior changed as a result of the campaign. And we also distribute an online survey to the public so we can also get their opinion about pedestrian safety and see if their awareness of the message increased or not. And then we compile that data into a report similar to the one that we gave you at the last time that we came here. And then the campaign itself is a month long, and it's broken down into two phases or components: education and enforcement. So education involves the local business community, RideWise, the police, and basically local businesses will receive materials to display and hand out to customers with the Street Smart message on it. Things from table tents, coffee sleeves, posters, I said table tents, what are those things? Those drink coasters and things like that. And then there's also larger street signs and banners that you can hang around town. And then the police will maintain a presence in the community and hand out tip cards along with their enforcement. So that's another education component. And then RideWise staff can be present at community events. We also can conduct Safe Routes to School programming to kind of complement it, which is where we teach the students about pedestrian safety. And we had Safe Routes to School going on last time in the last campaign. And then the enforcement component is broken down into two phases. The first 2 weeks is soft enforcement. So that is handing out tip cards and warnings to people who don't comply with the law. And then the next 2 weeks is hard enforcement, which is where the police issue tickets and summonses. So why Bernardsville? We conducted a Street Smart campaign last October, and it was very successful. So then Christine expressed interest in doing another one along with Chief Valentine. So now we've been working with the police, Chief Valentine, Christine, and Jeff. I had a conference call with them a while ago, about a month ago, to discuss the planning for the campaign, and I also met with Chief Valentine and a few of the police officers. So just a very quick summary of how successful the 2018 campaign was. Pretty much across the board almost, pedestrian and driver behavior improved, and some of the statistics are in that presentation. My favorite one is that in front of the Bernardsville Print Center, 100% of drivers stopped for pedestrians in the crosswalk, and actually while I was driving here, I saw another car stop for a pedestrian, so it's good to see that it's still keeping up. And that campaign was run in front of the train station, the Bernardsville Print Center, and then Morristown Road by the Roselle Bank. So the plans for this campaign, we're aiming to do the more northern part of the section. For the sake of not skewing the data, I'm going to be a little bit vague about the locations, just say that they're north of where the last campaign was, and our pre-campaign observations are going to happen in mid-September, so middle of this month. The campaign is going to be run in October, and then post-observations will probably be in November. And business outreach will be conducted by Councilwoman Christine and then Councilman Jeff, and enforcement conducted by the police.
Great, sounds terrific. So you will be doing different locations? We're not
Yes.
recruiting the same ones,
Yes, we're doing different locations.
but you don't tell anybody, so.
Yeah. Because then if the public knows where we are,
they'll
they'll,
be alert to it,
yeah.
Just be good everywhere.
Yeah. Be good, everyone, yes.
Yeah, no, that's great, thank you.
Yeah,
I think
thank
it's
you.
a great program, and it's terrific the work you guys are doing, and thank you, Christine and Jeff, for offering to participate in that.
Yeah, thank you guys for being open to it and doing it with us. It's great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
The presentation, if anyone wants to see the February one, is on our website.
Oh, yeah, and
If
I-
you can't find it, you can email me and I'll.
The, wasn't it the, didn't we have the report too, the final report's up there?
And I can email you guys a copy of that presentation too if you want to display it anywhere. Yeah,
Put that one up.
yeah.
All right, great, thanks for
Yeah.
coming, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, next is our downtown revitalization with a 10-minute update, right?
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
In some ways, this is our very best presentation since we started doing this last March. Because tonight, we're taking all the ideas that have been floating around since the survey and the town, the big town meeting and all the various presentations, and we're bringing it to a process to make it happen. So we're very excited about that. There are 5 very quick topics, I guess that means 2 minutes each, that we're going to talk about tonight. The first one is the contract with, oh, this actually works, huh? Okay.
I don't know if it's, does it,
What?
I think it just
You
records.
can hold that one if you want.
I don't know if that one.
Yeah, these mics work. If you want everyone to hear, you can sit here.
I have a loud voice.
Okay.
Thank you. So the first topic we're going to talk about is the contract with Topology that was proposed, and we would hope that you will approve it tonight and fund money for the 2019 portions of that, and I'll discuss that in a second. That contract will take us through the entire process to getting a shovel on the ground for Quimby Village. The second item we're going to talk about is the detailed timeline and schedule, so everyone's on the same page about where we think that's going to end up, and if anybody can figure out ways to accelerate it when we have additional counsel discussing it with Jack and ourselves, we will hopefully do that, but it looks like the timeline is pretty much set. The third thing is that each of the developers for Quimby Village sent a very short 2-page letter summarizing what they previously proposed. You all have that, and we're just going to talk about it very quickly. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is that we need to send the proposed zoning amendments, which have been on the borough website, and have a couple more days for comment, over to the planning board to do their thing. We're gonna talk about that. And then finally, we've gotten a lot of comments on the website, which is great, mostly about the Quimby Village project, but some about the zoning as well. And we're gonna share all those comments with everyone, which would be great. So I'm gonna stay up here for another minute or two. Well, I guess I only have a minute, right? Because I used a lot for the introduction. I'm gonna start with what is the topology work that's set forth in the contract that we're gonna ask you to approve tonight. So there are 5 streams of work in that contract in order for us to effectuate both Quimby Village and what we're gonna come to you later with the train station area. The first is called an area in need of redevelopment or an area in need of rehabilitation. That first phase, we need to decide which way it's gonna go. Hopefully in the next 2 or 3 days, we will decide that. Then there will be a resolution that will come to council at the next meeting, and you will refer it to the planning board to hire topology to do the study. That study will take till the end of the year. So in the meantime, we're gonna do due diligence with the 3 developers who have proposed, and we're gonna visit sites they've already developed, and we're gonna get more information about each of the developers. And in that decision over the next few days, which will come to council on September 23rd, for you to refer to the planning board, there will be a decision, recommendation for your decision on development, redevelopment versus rehabilitation. The second phase of topology's work, which will start at the beginning of next year, is the plan for redevelopment. And this is a statutory plan. It has lots of things in it that essentially create a special zoning envelope for the areas involved. And just to clarify, when we talk about the areas involved, we're talking about the Quimby Village areas, but we're also talking about the train station and the Ammerman lot, so that we never ever have to have the town's hands tied if we ever want to do anything with those other properties. So they'll all be special properties the town can work with. So after the plan for redevelopment that will be done by topology, the next thing they're gonna do is they're gonna send out to the developers an updated RFP to say, give us your final, give us your best, give us your last proposal, this is it. Council is gonna pick one of you guys on the basis of this. So that's gonna happen, well, you'll get all the dates, but this will happen in early spring. While that process is going on, we're gonna get topology to help us to understand how to get a transit village designation. Transit village designation, which a lot of our neighboring towns like Somerville have helped to get grants from the state. So it's an important thing to get, and we need to learn the steps. The 5th phase of the topology contract is advice on helping the lawyers negotiate the redevelopment agreement or contract. So from now until July 1st, all these things are going to happen, and we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail. So I think you all are aware of the costs, or do I need to go through that?
We good? Yeah. I think
Does
we got-
everybody know? So I guess we need for 2019 around 35,000, and the total topology contract is about 65,000, but 35 includes other matters, right?
So that's 35 till the end of this year, and then next year is the next 3 phases? Is that-
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, 4 phases, yeah. But the 35 this year is not just topology, it's legal fees, and it's paying for the planners for the zoning. I mean, I can go through that all if everybody, but everybody's gotten a memo,
We got the
right?
memo, yeah. I think the issue, I don't think we can do that tonight for topology because we haven't gotten the funds certified yet. So we're hoping that at the next meeting, we will have that in place.
If you wish me to look at the budget and try to find additional monies from another source, because $33,000 that was budgeted for.
Right,
this
we've already
beginning of
spent.
year is expended.
Right.
So if that's your wish, I will do
But
that, but I cannot say that
We can't do that tonight, but I think we've all agreed that this is a priority for the council. It's a project that, you know, if we have to give up something else to focus more on this, that is a goal that we all agree on. So
And then I just comment, because we did talk about this in our finance committee meeting, and we reviewed it. We think that there may be some alternatives to look at. We had some preliminary discussion about this already, Ralph. So the finance committee recommends to the full council that we would go forward with this approach. We think it's a high priority topic for the residents of the borough. They've expressed great interest in doing this, and we think it's the right thing to do. So I would propose that we go with the recommendation of having Ralph find us the funds to do this phase 1 2019 money, which is $34,500.
Any comments or? No. So maybe it'll be the next meeting, it won't be tonight, but that's our goal, is to.
So the next meeting, the contract gets approved and it gets sent to the planning board?
The contract or the?
We're only talking about the funds right now.
Okay, yeah, but
Right,
the
yeah.
funds are for the contract for topology.
Right.
And the
For
first
phase 1 of the
act-
contract.
Correct,
Phase
and the
one.
first action council will do on the 23rd is send it to the planning board to do the area in need of redevelopment study.
Right.
So those two things can
They
happen.
can happen at the same time.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect, great. Okay, I'm gonna sit down and Mike's gonna talk about the schedule. Thank you.
Hey, everybody, Mike Sullivan, just drilling down on Bonnie's timeline and schedule. Phase 1, the statutory compliance, designating the area redevelopment or rehabilitation. Hopefully to have that to you by December 12th, and topology, making a presentation of their findings before December 23, or on December 23. Phase 2 and 3 of the topology work to complete their redevelopment plan, including the transit village designation and providing the RFP amendments, all to occur before or on March 1. And then also as part 3 of the topology report, to provide their analysis in order for council to select the developer, and that's scheduled for May 15th, and then complete the legal docs and all the legal formalities, pilot if necessary, on or about July 1. Now, since you're under some time constraints, I'm going to turn this over to Jeff, unless there's any questions on the time.
Yeah, it's pretty ambitious.
Hello. After we got the proposals, we wrote to each of the bidders, and we asked them to send us a letter confirming the what they were suggesting they were doing and some of the numbers. In 2 minutes, obviously, I'm not going to run through a complete financial analysis, but basically, just to give you an idea of where we are, we have, as I said, 3 bidders who have proposals and substitutes. We have one bidder called Advance that is proposing 3 new residential buildings on either side of Old Quimby, and a central plaza with retail organized around the plaza, a street connection to Claremont, and a park along Minebrook. The second bidder, Malillo, also will close Quimby. All of the 3 bidders close Quimby one, and they would build one building, which would be along the east side of Old Quimby and down Mill Street. Parking below grade, park on the west side of Old Quimby, an adaptive reuse of the red brick building on the corner of Mill Street and Quimby. As an alternative to that, considering the request from council for more parking, they will also propose building a 225-car parking deck at the borough's expense. The third bidder, AST, again closed Quimby, and they will put 2 residential buildings on either side of Old Quimby. Public courtyard between the 2 buildings, new retail facing Mill Street, surface and under the building parking. As an alternative, they would also develop an additional retail space on the, I guess that's the southwest side of Quimby, which again, to augment the, to meet the council's request for more retail. The Advance proposed 113,000 square feet of new residential, 100 units, and a top height of the building of 36 feet. Malillo, the one that had 1 building, would have 87,000 square feet, and a building that would be approximately 54 feet high, and AST would have 137,000 square feet, and a building that's 50 foot high. For all three bidders, the affordable units will be included in the number of units that they're proposing. Advanced is proposing 6,000 square feet of net new retail space. For the two Malillo proposals, you'd actually lose some retail space because they would not replace the retail space that would be taken out. AST proposed 34,000 square feet of retail space on their first proposal. If they build the second proposal, the additional retail space on the other side of Quimby probably would double that number. Parking spaces, Advanced proposed 125 parking spaces plus additional expense spots at a shared cost if the borough requested it. Malillo had 122 square parking spots and up to 225, which would include the proposed parking deck. AST proposed 212 parking spaces and up to 116 below grade. Capital cost would run about $30 million for each of the proposals, a little bit more than that, although it's not clear whether that includes land acquisition costs. I know the Malillo proposal includes us giving them the post office lot for the development. Debt to equity was approximately the same, running from 30 and 45% equity per debt. The town cost would be wasn't provided for in the advanced proposal. Post office lot plus $3 million for amenities on Malillo number 1, plus an additional $7 million from Malillo if we built the parking deck. The AST proposed $7 million for amenities and additional below grade parking. And the amenities were essentially parks on the west side of Quimby, and two of the bidders proposed walking trails that connect Claremont to the development.
Jeff, when you say they all propose closing Quimby, it's the back part of it, not
right,
the 202 section.
I don't want to get bogged down in details.
Right,
but the idea would be probably, you figure about from where the Mexican restaurant
right,
is.
up to Mill Street. Got it. Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello,
You're at 15
I'm gonna try to
now.
keep it under 2 minutes. So, what I'm gonna talk about is the procedures for the new zoning ordinance, also referred to as the design standards. We feel that it's important to have design standards. So if somebody comes in and builds, they have to conform to what we want. So we don't have a bunch of stuff that we don't want. So anyway, the first step would be to send it to the planning board and they'll review it in a work session. And then from there it goes to John Szabo, who will review it for from a planning and zoning standpoint. And then from there it comes back to council here, hopefully October 15th, and council will introduce it. Okay, so if it gets introduced October 15th, it'll go back to the planning board and they'll review it and make sure that it conforms with the master plan. And then it'll come back to council to adopt October 28th. And that's it. But you know, we do feel it's important to get this through quick. We do have other projects coming up that we want to make sure that they build to our standards.
Yeah,
any questions?
Do you want to just quickly talk about Boxcar, just that the survey is up?
Sure, yeah,
there's
there's a
anybody
survey.
here is a commuter?
Yeah, anyone who wasn't at the last meeting, we're trying to have a luxury bus come from New York, from Bernardsville directly to New York without stopping. It'll have a bathroom, Wi-Fi, and it's supposed to be a lot quicker. It'll go right into New York. So that's one of the things. And what we did is we put a survey out on the borough website. So if you're a commuter, we're looking for some feedback on what times that you would want to take the bus. So, and where you get dropped off.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Good.
Just wanted
Anything
to
else?
plug in. No, thank you for
Okay.
all your work.
Sure.
Oh, we
You're
have.
welcome.
One more.
We have one more.
I'm in between you guys and happy hour.
This is the good part.
Once again, I'm the closer, and I got the task of sharing with you the resident feedback. So we did put a survey out on the borough website, asking for feedback based on our commitment at the last meeting. 2 sections for it to say, hey, can you give us your written feedback about the RFP responses to the village? And then another section to please give us your feedback on the standards for zoning and architecture. So we have over 30 responses where residents took the time to write in. This is just not check the box, say yes or no, or rate something 1 to 5. Tell us what you think. So overall here, as I went through every one of the responses so far, which by the way, the survey's open until this Friday the 13th, so we're still taking feedback, folks. So overall right now, there is strong positive support for the RFPs and the standards, well over 80% positive in both categories. And it's consistent with the survey we did to start this process a 1.5 years ago, where everyone said that, hey, 98% it was important or very important to take action on these matters. So very, very consistent from the original survey. On the topic of architectural and zoning standards, just here's some quick themes. 1, consistent, strong support that we gotta do something and architectural standards are needed and needed quickly. And again, fair and balanced feedback. There was concern that the town will not enforce them, so sharing that. The other theme that I saw, and this is actually an exact quote, the quote is, very extensive and it is obvious that a lot of thought went into these. Now I'm going to switch over to the Quimby Village and the downtown RFPs and the response. So on the plus side, as I read through them, here were some themes, and any theme that I mentioned here came up multiple times from the comments in various forms. So 1, residents are seeing this as consistent with what has been done in other successful downtown turnaround situations. There is a strong desire for a place for residents to congregate and to be a destination, and examples like Lambertville and Frenchtown were provided as examples. There were frequent, almost nearly all the residents mentioned that there's a need for public spaces for events, live music, a Christmas tree lighting, and I always put my plug in the wintertime. I want to put a portable ice rink in there in the wintertime so we can have some activities there in the wintertime for year-round programming. That's Paul's plug. The other theme was they're looking for something that's pedestrian-friendly with sufficient parking underground. That came through time and again. They're looking for a public park for children and families to use as important. And there was a very strong requirement for more outdoor dining. I can't tell you how many times I saw written outdoor dining in the comments. So for outdoor dining, nightlife, gathering places, and pedestrian-friendly walking spaces. Concerns. Fair and balanced feedback. There's concerns of how we're going to handle the parking. So I think with the 2D drawings that are presented in the RFPs, it's hard to understand how much is underground, how much is above, and what's the flow. But there is concern about that. And I think as a project team, our committee, and as a council and as a community, there are a lot of questions about why the residential component. So I think we need to make sure we educate everyone here as to why there is a need for a residential component, because it's key, and on the mission for this, and what we learned from the professional planners that have done this, it's a key component to create an environment for sustained success. So we have to help kind of connect the dots, so we have to address that question mark and help people understand it. And then fair, balanced feedback. There's some concerns on what's the potential impact on traffic and how we're going to handle the flows. So fair. I'm going to leave you with exact quotes because I think these are important. Here's what our residents are saying. So everything I have here is verbatim. Fair and balanced feedback. Leave it as they are right now. I don't want any change done to the area. So I guess they like our downtown as it is. Another one is having a village-like area is more appealing and easier to shop and dine. Next quote. Any proposal needs to have a gathering space that can be used for concerts and such. Parents with small children could let their kids play safely in the park or plaza while they sit and chat over coffee. Tweens can walk to the village after school. Give us a pretty place to walk and hang out. Route 202 is not conducive to leisurely strolls. Excited that there is a defined strategy that addresses several key items and issues that will improve the quality of life and help improve our real estate appeal. Very unique and love the concept of a pedestrian-only area where we can bring in folks to enjoy time away from their homes. We should make sure the retail space will allow for outdoor seating and restaurants. Okay, we're near the end, last 2 quotes. This one I like. Let's be unique. If we take Lambertville's charm,
Morristown's vibe, Millburn's retail and dining selection, we'd have a really amazing downtown that people actually want to come to. It's time to get out of the old and into the new. And the last person, I love their succinctness, was Mark Twain. They took their time to write a nice tight note. And this is my favorite, 2 words, do it. Thank you. Have a good night.
A quick question.
Yes, Jeff.
How many, maybe I missed it, but how many responses have you?
Yeah,
got
30
so
and
far?
counting so far.
30?
Yeah.
So there's still time, get on there.
Friday the 13th.
Comments, please.
What?
Ralph, I just had a question.
Know that I read.
Yes.
It looks like reading through all this, that topology's high end for this year would be 22,000?
That's the,
Oh, sorry.
the high end for
The high end of
topology?
topology's proposal is 22,000 for this year, this calendar year.
So,
There might be other
I-
things. In fact,
yeah.
there might have been money in there for,
Yeah, high-end topology is 22
Just
this
with
year,
the-
but there was money in there
For John
for
Zabo.
John Zabo,
Okay.
and there was money in there for the attorney you're gonna hire.
and it also, the total amount 34.5 also includes the additional planning work that the planning board would need to do to evaluate the architectural standards as well.
Okay.
So we were trying to make sure that the estimates encompass everything that we would anticipate occurring up through and including December 31st of this year. So it's a series of different things, not just one item.
Okay, thanks for the
But yeah,
clarification.
that was 22.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, committee, for all your hard work, and it's a ambitious agenda, it's schedule, so, we'll try as hard as we can to stick to it. Okay, all right? So thank you for all your work.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, by proclamation. Did you give me a paper copy, or did I just scroll through this? No, that's not it. No. Do you have a copy? Just so I don't have to go scrolling through the whole thing to find it. Oh, wait a minute, I actually opened it. Okay, I got it, never mind. Okay, I now have a proclamation to read. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17th, 2019 marks the 232nd anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, now therefore I, Mary Jane Canose, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Mayor of the Borough of Bernardsville, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. Okay, so there we go. That's the proclamation. And now we come to our open session where members of the public can come up and address the council on any issue that's on their mind. We limit the comments to 3 minutes. So when you first come up, please say your name and your address. And please keep your comments respectful, and audience, please respect the person speaking. I see a hand. Dan, come on up. And we have a little timer here, so you will know when your 3 minutes is up.
I know I sent you an email, Mary Jane. The latest issue of New Jersey Monthly
Yes.
has rated all the towns and villages, small towns and larger ones, in terms of how livable they are in New Jersey. Bernardsville is listed as one of 16 best small towns in the state. And there's actually, you can go online and vote for it if you'd like to, so that we could actually be number one.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Olivia, is Olivia here? Yes. Yes. Olivia had posted it on Facebook, so if you're on the bubble, you can, or go to downtown Bernardsville and you can go there and find the link to vote, because it's you know, the more votes we get. And as the status changes, you may have to vote again. So you need to keep up with that and keep checking it because I guess they're going to compete with each other and it'll keep changing. So
Are we
yes.
allowed to put that link on our website, or is that considered too self-promotion?
I don't see a problem with it.
Why not?
It's not a commercial picture.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, I think we should do it. That's a good suggestion.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, you see a hand back there. Just name and address for the record.
Hi, Mark Kalinowski. My wife and I live at 15 Spruce Place. Appreciate your time. Just want to register my deep concerns about the pumping station. We live in a neighborhood that is peaceful and quiet and beautiful, and I see the potential for an eyesore. I hear the question asked, is this going to make noise? I don't hear a yes or no answer to this question. I hear it's going to be relatively quiet. Relative to what? Relative to the quiet of the neighborhood it is now? Relative to a jet airplane? I have deep concerns. My background's in mechanical engineering. I've worked for Ford. I've worked for GM. I've consulted for Ford. I've consulted for GM. When I see a design like that design and I hear what's going on at there, I can't say for 100% certain. I'm not going to come up here and lie to you that it's going to be quiet. But my background has all the alarm bells ringing. And I live 50 steps from where that station's going to be. I have a lot of concerns about that. So I would urge you, if that station can be built elsewhere, please have it built elsewhere. If it absolutely has to be there, you've heard it's been done underground before, have it done underground. That will minimize it being an eyesore. It will minimize the noise. To me, those are solutions I would look into. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So Jack,
I was going to say, if there will be public hearings at the planning board on this as well.
Yes, and you'll have to give notice to all property owners within 200 feet, just like any other.
Or is it Board of Adjustment?
Is it Board of Adjustment or planning?
It depends, we didn't have enough facts.
Thought he
They
said-
said it was a conditional use. If it's a conditional
Yeah,
use
it's-
and
I
they
think
meet all
it's
the
planning
conditions,
board.
then it would be planning board. If they can't meet all the conditions, then the ordinance would be the board.
Right.
So-
So there will be public hearings at those boards as well, where you will have an opportunity to raise your concerns there too.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they were here tonight.
Yeah.
So who determines whether they meet all the conditions? Does the planning board determine that?
Well, initially the zoning officer, but if it goes before the planning board and they don't meet all the conditions, they would have to.
Then it would go to the Board of Adjustment. Okay. Yes, again. Gentlemen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tim Behaney. I live at 9 Locust Drive. I also would like to register my concern with the pumping station on Oak Place. My property is adjacent to the vacant lot that's currently there. I would ask that you all employ opportunity to explore putting this property elsewhere or putting this pumping station elsewhere. It's the size of this building. 1,000 square feet is about this big, right? Give or take. That's a large building in a very quaint residential.
this room, not
This
the
room,
building.
sorry, this room is about 1,000 square feet, if I did a quick guess.
Just want to clarify.
My concern is, to my comments from my neighbors, it's a quiet, kind of intact neighborhood. And to have to sit out the side of my porch and look at this eyesore every day, in the last 16 years I've been here, having an empty lot has been preferred. An underground station, it's somewhat of an eyesore right now. The property is somewhat unkept, so they haven't really been there to do much on their property, although I don't think they really have cared at this point. My concern is a building of this size, or a room of this size, and fencing surrounding it basically takes up the entire lot, ruins the integrity of the neighborhood. So when you come into that neighborhood, you drive up a hill and you look smack at this building. And I think for everyone who lives in that neighborhood, there's 40 plus families in that neighborhood. That is something that none of us agreed to when we bought and purchased property there. Generally concerned property values that I will have received are diminished. My adjoining neighbors will also have issues. I would really ask you all, and I know the planning board will be engaged, and I know we will all be immobilized as well. But definitely a huge, huge concern. If there's another option, it would be great if they can pursue that. Underground, if possible, it currently exists. We didn't hear what type of volume the underground pumping station talks about or delivers currently. So it'd be great to hear if there are other alternatives, maybe a swap with town land or something else would be a great option, because it would be a shame to ruin a neighborhood over the fact that they were in a dispute with Morris County. So I thank you all very much. I'm sure this won't be the last you see of many of us, but thank you for your time and effort on this.
So can we ask, I'm probably gonna do this anyway, but can we have a link on our website so that people can see when's the next meeting for this, when's the next discussion, where to go on what time and what day?
Sure.
Just so that we make sure that we're communicating
Right.
with the public about when they should be attending and providing feedback on this and the correct next venue to be at.
Yeah, and yeah, when the next,
American Water did send note letters to some of our neighbors,
They did.
and we as a community share it with the entire
Sure.
for tonight's presentation.
for tonight's, yeah, but when they get to the next step, you know, we wanna make sure that you know when that is and that you can be there.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes. Nope, I got one over there. Yeah,
Pat Formica, I live at 8 Spruce Place. I have a question about the transfer of open space money to help maintain some of the recreation spaces, in particular the polo grounds. I noticed in last week's paper it referred to lighting for the polo grounds. What type are we talking about? Big honking lighting? Are we just talking about safety lighting? Do we know?
it's the same lighting that was there in the past, the portable lighting that they put up and take down, except that it would not be diesel, so it wouldn't be as noisy.
It would not be what, I'm sorry?
Diesel, which is noisy, you hear them running.
Yes, you do.
This would not be diesel, what was it gonna be?
LED lights that would plug in, so they would be more efficient lights, but they would also be quiet. They'd be basically silent.
Okay, and it's still temporary.
And they would be portable
Portable,
lights, so
same
that they
ones
could be
they've
moved.
had.
They would fold down when not in use.
Yeah.
And they would be the comparable height to what was used on that same location in the past.
Okay, and there was also some mention of a path. I wasn't sure where.
It would be around the polo grounds.
A walking path.
Walking path, so that you could get around the whole property.
Okay, all right.
If you wanted to exercise or just take a walk.
Yeah. Through that wooded section?
No, just around the field, right,
around the
Christine?
Around the field.
Along the perimeter.
Yeah,
Around the perimeter of the fields.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. And so, you were next.
Chad McQueen, 15 Sycamore Hill. I'll be brief. Actually, Paul Sedlak, as part of the revitalization committee, mentioned the lack of enforcement that people were worried about. There's a ordinance in front of, I think, the council tonight that talks about additional tools that our zoning officers can use to help enforce our current ordinances. I personally strongly would hope that the council would endorse that bill or that ordinance. I think it will help Jeff and our zoning officers do their job.
Thank you. Wait, I had this woman over here first, and then Olivia. We need wider aisles.
Carol Barkhorn, 20 Oak Ridge Road, and my property is directly adjacent to where they want to put this pumping station. So I'm extremely concerned, as many of my neighbors are, who probably aren't going to get up here and say anything, but we're all kind of very upset about the whole situation. What I would agree with Tim is to ask, first of all, if there isn't a better place to locate it rather than in the middle of our neighborhood. There are 4 cul-de-sacs there, and as you come up the hill, and I urge all of you to come drive up our hill, the point of land that sticks out where they want to put this is the first thing you see when you come up to our neighborhood. So somewhere else would be great. Secondly, underground would be the next best thing, so we wouldn't have to look at it. If we have to have it there, I would want a lot more input about what it looks like. This is a very, it could be more residential looking. But the way the drawing, as I could see it from there, looked like, you know, kind of a cement, industrial looking kind of structure, which is not going to be very complimentary. Also, they didn't say anything about a fence. Are they planning to put a fence? I went and looked at.
They did mention a fence, as
They
we talked about safety measures, they said a fence would be installed around.
Okay, because I went and looked at 2 other pumping stations in town, they had fences. Really awful chain link fences. If they have to have a fence, I would hope it would be a little more appropriate to a neighborhood rather than a chain link fence. And the other issue is trees. I'm hoping they don't take, this whole point has trees. I hope they don't take them all down, because then we're really gonna be stuck looking at this thing. So there are a lot of concerns that could be addressed in terms of specific things that they would do, so that if it can't be put somewhere else, it doesn't impact our neighborhood in such a negative way.
Thank you. I wish they had stayed so they could hear your
I
comments.
wish
So,
they
yeah, I was
had
gonna say,
stayed.
Jack, like, is the planning board the right
Yes.
venue? Assuming the planning board is the next step for this group.
Correct.
Is this type of comment something the planning board can take into consideration
As part
during?
of the site plan.
Yes.
Okay, so then the next best thing to do is to come back to the planning board when it gets to that level, assuming planning board is looking at it, to provide similar input. Obviously, we'll have the meeting minutes from tonight as well, but.
Yeah, but to be clear, we don't really have a lot of say in the matter, it's all about the planning board.
Right.
Does,
Yeah.
you know,
You
it's an
can lobby
interesting
them
point.
to try to move it, but you don't have any legal powers to do anything to that.
It was interesting, the issue about trees that was just brought up. Does this have to be run by the shade tree committee? If they're gonna be removing trees?
If they're removing trees as part of the site plan application, it requires that the copy of the application be referred to the shade tree for their comments.
Can I just ask, how many of you are here about that issue? So you are a big group, yes. And it affects a lot of people. So I think, yeah, really. Yeah, probably the best place to go is the planning board when they have their hearing, and we'll be happy to make sure you know when that is, so that you can be there, because it makes an impact on the planning board when people come and speak.
They've
They
already
take
surveyed the property and probably marked about 100 trees that are considered their
They
property.
have already, yeah.
And they've already done a soil sample on the property. So it's.
Yeah, but that's part of their.
It's concerning that it's moving without.
Well, that's part of the application process, and they have to have all that information in order to go to the planning board, but then it's the planning board that makes that decision. But they need that information in order to even get a date on their calendar.
And they can't actually cut the trees until they get board approval.
Right. So, yeah. Anyone else want to speak or have something? Olivia?
Hi, Olivia Manning, 13 Orchard. I am obviously here to talk about the Quimby project, which was always a great thing from the get-go. And I hope that we can be reminded as a community as to why this was started to begin with, and I believe it was for the revitalization of the town, correct? Right?
Yeah.
I guess a voice for the community, will voice a couple of the concerns. I think Paul mentioned maybe a little bit of that some folks are realizing that this is a little bit of another condo project. So maybe putting minds at ease that it's not all a condo project. I believe one of the proposals said there would be minimal retail on it. I think that's concerning to a lot of folks. And what's concerning to me is if we're adding more retail, what's happening with the fact that the storefronts we have are empty, and there's going to be now more empty storefronts. So as a Main Street organization, we obviously are working towards that, but working hand in hand with this committee and the progress that they're doing moving forward is going to be very important for us to be able to make sure we are on the same page, because again, we're going to have more empty storefronts. It's not going to help just to make it pretty again. So that's, I guess, on the maintenance side. I believe the comment that Paul read about the maintenance was mine, because that was my biggest concern. Again, we have empty storefronts, we will have more of them. So just something to think about as we move on, and something for the community to think about as well, that there needs to be more than just building new buildings. We need to make sure we're maintaining our historical preservation if we can, and then, doing more than just building something.
Yeah. And I think the program you're working on, the Main Street program, gives us a good strategy if we get that designation, thanks to your hard work. Gives us a strategy for working all the factors, the economic factor, the retail factor, and how they all connect, and that if it's not always if you build them, they will come. There's got to be a little bit more planning. And if you become, what Olivia's working on is you can get a designation called Main Street. I think it is a national, right? It's Main Street USA.
It's national. We actually are members already, so we're on the low level because we're so new, but we are just inching more towards the main designation.
And it's a very intensive process. There's a lot of factors that have to go into which covers everything, not just activities or buildings. It's the whole idea of downtown. It's the economic piece, and Olivia's been doing a lot of work on it. And once you get that designation, it makes us eligible for grants, for a lot of resources that help you attract people to your town. You know, find the retailers that may be the best fit for Bernardsville. So it's a wonderful program, and that's also going to help. And usually what you end up with then is a professional downtown manager that is overseeing all that's going on downtown, and it just brings it all together. So that's where we're headed with that, and Olivia has taken this on, so she could use all the help she can get. If you want.
Yes, join us if you can.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, we are doing it now.
Right.
So it's as much as we'll get the designation and we'll get all these awesome perks, we are still doing it right now, and we're going to keep rolling with it. And it's by default, I'm becoming that, I guess, professional person because I'm doing their trainings, I'm going to their conferences, I'm doing the things that are required of these people that are in all of these other towns. And the first thing that we're doing right now is trying to decipher who we are as Bernardsville, because while Somerville and Westfield and all those other towns are really great, they are those towns and we are someone else. So we have to stop comparing ourselves to those towns and start being our own town. So that's something that we need to think about too. So
thank you.
Do you have a meeting coming up too where public participation is encouraged?
It's the 16th, October 16th.
October 16th.
October 16th. I believe
the
it's at the high school
cafeteria.
cafeteria, right? Yeah, it's 6:30 to 8:30, and we'll put more information out there, but check the paper, check online, check everywhere. We'll be putting lawn signs out. You'll be able to see information on it.
You may have seen the sign. This will be your third community meeting. They've been doing quarterly community meetings, and this one, the focus will be on the Mount Airy murals. So if you want to have input on the murals that we're looking to do, that'll be the meeting to come to.
Yes, and if you're itching to
It
find the
was, we
information.
had it the 17th, we've changed it to the 16th, just for the
Yes, of
artist.
October, yes. And if you're itching for more information, like right this second, or when you get home, just go to downtownbernardsville.com, you'll find all the information there.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Greg? Oh, she's already here. Okay, I didn't see you coming up.
Hi, Gina McCready, 20 Page Hill Road. Just wanted to echo some of what Olivia was just saying. Thank you so much for all that you're doing, by the way. But people, as I'm talking to people in town, they are concerned about more residential condos. They feel as though Bernardsville is on a condo kick and something needs to be done about it. Now, granted, I told them there is a survey out there and to go and take it so that their voice is heard, and thankful for Paul actually reading them and bringing it back to everybody. The second topic I wanted to talk about was the open space 20% funding, and there's with the portable lights and the storage of those lights. Now, being on the Somerset Hills Football Board, knowing that we are the ones who have purchased the lights in the past, or they've been generously donated to us by friends and family of people who are members of the football organization. They are expensive, they are big, and we had no place to store them, which is part of the reason why the football team, the football organization themselves, aside from them being expensive, we also didn't have a place to store them because they're so big. And I think that the money that's in currently that's up for being spent out of this open space money, I think it's honestly frivolous to spend it on the lights and storage of those lights when we can use that money instead, that same amount of money pretty much, and get a recreation plan together and pay for that, which there was a great presentation a couple of council meetings ago by somebody who did a plan in the past for other towns, and I think that the money is better spent on a plan than the lights, and the lights aren't even needed right now by anything or anyone. And granted, it could be used, and I'm sure there could be different events they could be used for, but I think the money would be better spent on a rec plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Greg, you had your hand up.
Greg DeGrant, Price 7 Plymouth Court. I want to just for temporary lights, I'm a little, I don't know what we're talking about for dollars, but 147,000 obviously is a permanent lights, which I think is part of what everybody wants to do.
That's a combination of things.
Sure. 60 is the lights. Right, so to rent lights, I think for something that an organization used to provide for itself, the town is taking open space taxpayer funded, taxpayer money then rent lights temporarily, I think is crazy.
It's not for rental.
They're for buy,
Purchase.
but then they can be used anywhere?
They're portable lights. The term temporary is a little strange. They're portable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd still be much better to either, I mean, that was an interesting idea that you didn't have, but even putting them toward a permanent solution, right? I mean, if they're portable, I guess they could be used anywhere, but if that complex is ultimately gonna be a plan and something built out, I'd much rather see the money allocated to something permanently than a temporary thing that apparently is difficult to store and use anyway, so. I also had a question, sorry, since we're talking about the, like the concept of condominiums going up, do we have any idea like how many, or is there a projection of how many new students that would bring to a school system? And if there is there kind of communication between either the council or a different board and the Board of Education on how that would impact?
I think right now they're still working on what that residential is gonna look like. I mean, who they're gearing it to, are they gearing it to empty nesters, young professionals, young families? You know, it's defining what that is gonna be, and they're not quite at that stage yet as to who it is we're looking to attract.
So the Bar Hills condos that are planning on going in, I think there's 104 units or something over there, and they're anticipating 1.2 new students per.
Yeah, it depends, and that's, you know, like one big building kind of thing. This is a little more mixed use, you know, where you're not getting a yard or a kind of, so I think, I'm thinking they're gearing it more towards empty nesters and young professionals, you know, commuters, people that are maybe working in the city, or somebody downsizing.
Our house is in Mount Laurel too. They have
Yes,
to have
that's
family.
They have to have family, yes, we don't have to. Yeah, that's meeting their
We have a smaller
their court
requirement.
requirement. Yes,
We have some. That's just
some,
yeah.
yeah.
Patrick York, 7 Oak Ridge Road, regarding the pumping station. So I live right across the street. I have a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 2-month-old, all boys.
Get your hands
my
full.
my concerns are the same as everyone else in the room. Property values we just bought 3 years ago, moved back to town after growing up here. You know, the construction that goes on there, extremely concerned over my kids running around in the yard. It's literally right across the street. I urge you to come up into the neighborhood to check it out. I'm happy to walk around with you. I'm sure everyone is. You know, long-term real estate values and just everything that is involved with it. Just, you know, extremely concerned about the project. My 2 questions are, why can't they bury the structure, or why can't they put it somewhere else? Those are the 2 big questions. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Dan?
So, Dan Lincoln, 28 Alcott Avenue. Just 2 things. One is, I forgot to mention before, in the New Jersey Monthly Magazine, that they said the Alcott Avenue Historic District was the main attraction, which was kind of interesting.
Yes, I did see that.
Number 1. And number 2, you were asking questions about how would you decide how many kids were coming into with the condos or rentals. That would really be based on the number of bedrooms. So when you have 2 and 3 bedroom units, you can have more children. If you have studios 1 and 2, that would mean less children. So when the plan comes forward, that's when you want to ask that question.
Thank you, Dan. That's a good point. Anyone else from the public? Yes, Cheryl.
Cheryl Metaluna, 160 Old Army Road. I live 1 block over from where all the concerned residents are from the pump station, but I'm voicing my opinion as a real estate agent that sold a lot of homes in that neighborhood. I've always portrayed that neighborhood as one of the crown jewels of this town because it is so quiet, it's beautifully landscaped, everybody takes care of their properties, there's tons of kids running around at any one time, and I can tell you from past experience with buyers that any type of structure that is not natural, be it a water tower, a pumping station, does affect the property values. People have a lot of reasons why they want to buy a house, but they only need one reason to walk away from a house. And I've had many clients walk away from houses where there are structures, so I just beg you to keep that in mind as we move forward. If it has to be in that spot, if there's a way to put it in the ground, let's try to do what we can to make that happen.
Okay, yeah, this
I
would
feel
be
bad you guys are coming, this really isn't us, it's really the planning board, I mean, but they presented to us tonight, and that's how it came out, but
I feel bad for everybody, because it's really, it's not our decision. It's, I mean, Jack, am I saying that correctly?
That's correct.
It's really, it's really the planning board that you have to go see, and I would urge you to go to that meeting just like you attended this evening.
Their letter felt like an invitation to come have a discussion.
I'm glad to have everybody, don't get me wrong, I feel bad we can't
Yeah,
get
and
more
I
input.
wish they had stayed, because then they could have heard some
Right.
of the comments now and been thinking
Right.
differently as they went, so.
Someone mentioned lobbying before. Do you mean lobby the planning board or lobby American Water?
I mentioned it, I'm to lobby New Jersey American Water.
Lobby American
Right.
Water. Would you lobby the people that came here tonight, or would you lobby someone?
I can't answer that, who are the appropriate people?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea, though. Anyone else from the public? Okay, I will close the public session. So if you guys want to take a minute, and those guys are gonna leave. So we'll take a 2-minute break here. Go. Okay, item 6A. We are continuing the public hearing on the ordinance 2019-1807, which is an ordinance authorizing installation of a speed hump on Wesley Avenue and supplementing and amending Chapter 7 of the Borough Code entitled Traffic. This was, we had postponed it once before because we didn't have the traffic study. We just got the traffic study, so I think at this point we wanted to move it to the next meeting so that everyone has a chance to look at the traffic study and get your comments together and think about, you know, what's good, what's bad, or whatever. And also for our people to review it, because I don't think John McDowell's really had a chance either. So unless somebody wants to comment tonight, we will continue the public hearing at the next meeting. So do I need a motion to do that?
Yeah, I was gonna make that suggestion as well,
Okay.
to be fair to the public, to be able to digest the calming study. So I propose we move it, but I'd also, if I can, I think there are two questions we'd like to ask the engineer to include, to amend his report and include. Should I bring those up now, those questions, or not?
What are they?
Well, for one is, so he's made this recommendation, but he's made no statement about what he projected the effect of that recommendation would be. You know, so he had a certain number of percentage of cars that are traveling more than 25 miles an hour. Would he expect that to go away? Would he expect that to be reduced by 50%? He didn't make any statement about that. And I think if I were living on that street, I'd want to know that. The other thing is that he wants to raise the height, or he suggested the height of a hump of 4 inches. What's the range that's available? Is it something, is that a mid-range? Is that the highest speed hump available? What are the options that he selected that particular height for?
So can we send those written questions to the engineer and ask him to just supplement and answer the 2 questions?
I can send that.
Yeah.
And then I'll craft them a little bit more eloquently and I'll send them to you.
Send it to me, not
Okay.
forward it, yeah, okay.
But, okay, having said that, then I'll move that we postpone it.
Actually, a question, will that be sent to the neighborhoods? How will we see this?
Can we put the traffic study on the website? Is that, it's a public document,
Yes,
right? So
we
we could
certainly can,
post it on our website so that you can see it as well?
And then Anthony, once we get the answers, the same link should bring them to the answers to the
To
questions.
the questions,
Yeah.
everyone can see the answers, yeah, I can do that.
Jack?
If we have additional questions for the engineering firm, should we just forward them to you, Anthony?
Can we take questions from members of the public?
It's up to the mayor.
I don't see why
Once I read the
not.
engineering
Well,
study, yeah.
what would be nice is to get them all answered, so that
Right,
next
yeah.
meeting we would
So
have
I would
it.
forward, once I read the, I have questions, you know,
Yeah.
I can work to you.
Yeah.
Which you can, you know, share with the public.
Yeah. That way we're not, you know, because if you ask us, we won't have the answers next week, so that way we'll get it all ahead of time. Okay. So did I have a second?
Second.
Okay, voice vote is good enough? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we will continue that hearing on the next meeting. The next is ordinance 2019-1810 is an ordinance prohibiting marijuana facilities and supplementing and amending section 12 of the Borough Land Use Ordinance entitled zoning. Again, I think we're gonna extend this public hearing to next meeting because we had all the amendments and now it has to go back to the planning board with the amendments.
Well, if you want to amend tonight, or if you just want to carry it to digest those
The amendments you just did.
suggested amendments, because I don't know a whole lot about marijuana, so.
I'd say we carry it to digest.
Come on, Jack, we're all friends here.
You went to college in the '60s. Because it sounds like what you sent me earlier, the urgency's kind of off right now because they're done allocating their.
But that's why Werner's tax is kick the can.
I mean, I don't want to kick the can, I don't want to stop the process, but I don't want to rush the process either. Make sure we get it right.
There's no urgency to do it at this point.
So let's do that, digest it, and we revisit it as item of business or something, next meeting, just to keep the process.
So I would move just to continue the public hearing, and then it can be amended, the next meeting, we can continue it again as amended.
Okay.
So are you making that motion?
I'll move to.
Second.
All in-
To,
Continue the public
Continue it.
Just continue the public hearing, not the motion that's in the agenda.
continue the public hearing until September 23rd.
Right.
So September 23rd, obviously people weren't prepared for that now, so the September 23rd is gonna be the public hearing, is that what you're saying?
No, it's just a way to keep the ordinance alive. We can discuss these amendments the next time, if you wanna make these or others, you can move to amend, and then there'll be a continued public hearing after that.
Okay, so, yeah, I have no objection to continuing, but I did have a question in terms of public input. Since the focus of this really is about the medicinal aspect of marijuana, have we gotten any input? I haven't seen it from the Board of Health.
Were they asked anything?
Well, I don't know.
That's good question.
Well, we could send it to them as well as the planning board. Why don't we do that and just, do you have a meeting coming up?
Yeah.
Board of Health? And that'll,
Will it be before the 23rd?
Well, I don't think it needs to go back to the planning board.
I think it might be next.
Until-
I think it
until
might
we
be
have
Monday.
something that you can consider final adoption or something.
It's the 23rd.
It's the same night as they've already opined on the fact that it's not inconsistent with the master plan, and I don't think these amendments will change.
are gonna
that.
change that?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's Monday.
But let's get a vote in the continuation though, so.
Right, just to continue the public.
I move, Chris second, and.
Okay, so all in favor of continuing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
You're opposed? Okay, one opposed? Okay,
Jeff, we have a, Board of Health Monday.
Monday?
16.
okay, so can you just take a copy or send a copy before
So
their meeting?
what are we asking the Board of Health to tell us?
Just to
We can
review
just
it.
comment.
Yeah,
Review and comment? I mean,
I don't think-
I would like to ask the Board of Health to comment on medicinal marijuana and to separately comment on recreational marijuana, so that they have a comment on both topics, because I think the two topics have been sometimes conflated in the discussion, and I'd like to separate those two and request, most especially for the Board of Health, because if there's a medical application, that seems like the Board of Health should be able to opine on the medical veracity of medical uses.
So send them in the memo.
Yeah, so I would propose that we would do that at least. So when we ask them for their opinion, ask them for their opinion in both categories.
Just by way of background, those, excuse me, amendments I proposed, I borrowed from the Massachusetts state regulations, and in two.
The definitions, you mean?
Right, and the exemptions. Two of you asked questions about whether CBD, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it was covered, but I added a second paragraph specifically stating CBD is not.
is exempted.
It
Yeah.
is exempted.
Exempted, so just in not legal speak, it's allowed, is that what?
Yes, yeah.
So this ordinance is allowing CBD, so
Yes,
like,
right.
if I walk downtown, I see signs advertising CBD.
That's fine.
They have a little picture of marijuana
But
plants
it's
on
there
them.
now.
It's not
That's
real
allowed.
marijuana.
That's allowed.
Correct.
Yeah,
So-
because it has no,
CBD doesn't have any psychoactive,
whatever you call it, yeah.
So can I, since we're on that topic and about trying to put your legal language into human English,
It came from Massachusetts, that's why.
It was from Massachusetts, blame that, that's right. But section C1C, where it says the weight of any other ingredient combined with cannabis, et cetera, what exactly does that statement mean?
No. It's straight out of their regulation. So that's why I think we need some technical review.
Okay, because I was struggling with a lot of the double negatives and things like that, not inconsistent with, et cetera, but I really didn't understand what that clause was exempting or prohibiting or allowing.
That's why I suggested we not adopt them tonight, we have people review them.
I got it.
So who would be the person to review it, like with the expertise to understand the legalese?
Maybe the Board of Health, that's some people, I'm not sure. It's a lot more complicated than I thought it was gonna be.
Okay, so we'll get it to the Board of Health and get them to comment on both separately, medical and recreational. Okay, now we are up to ordinance 2019-18-12, an ordinance appropriating $146,000 from the Borough Open Space Trust Fund for various improvements to existing borough recreation and open space facilities. And what this is, where these funds are coming from, is right now under the current ordinance for open space, we are allowed to use 20% for improvements And this is a combination, because I don't believe we used last year's and this year's, so that's why there's that amount of money available. So I will open the public hearing on that, so if anyone on the public would like to, Greg?
I'd like to ask you, what are the improvements to the gazebo at Kiwanis?
So my understanding was that it was for some water intrusion and for some electrical, just to make sure that the electrical is functioning properly and safe, and for water intrusion.
How much is it for?
Pardon me?
How much is it for?
We didn't break down the individual items, so we're saying in total it's 146,000 based on estimates we've got for individual items. It wasn't a huge proportion of the amount.
60 was for the lights, 20 was for the structure to keep the lights, there's 80.
I think it was like 10.
But I think the ordinance doesn't break it out specifically,
I don't
because
remember.
sometimes, you might be a little bit over on one, a little bit under on another.
As a general comment, I think we should maybe continue this to kind of refine it a bit, because, there's been doubt about the necessity, the lights, the storage. And while there's some things that are good ideas, I feel like we're kind of rushing this, this little haste makes waste. I just feel like it's not refined enough.
Well,
Wait a minute, right now, we're doing the public hearing, so let's let the public say what they need to say.
Sure.
Hi, Steve Reynolds. I agree with John. I think it's too vague. I think the lights is not a necessity. I think with the pending referendum and the amount of money that could be generated to do more at a given time, makes sense to relook at, I guess, this list and maybe to fine tune a little bit. I mean, the gazebo's in really good shape. I mean, if it's more than $500, I can't imagine what else, is being done to it. So I think it needs to be broken out more and with more, definition of what's being done.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Can I make a comment?
Sure. Well, we want to wait for the public.
Anybody else in the public want to be heard on this ordinance?
Now, remember, this
Dan?
is just appropriating the money. So you want to leave it somewhat flexible, because if you put specific amounts and specific things, you're gonna have to go back and amend the ordinance if it's $5 over or whatever. So there'll have to be action by the council to authorize specific projects. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think we should use the money, but then how do we go about making sure it's being done in an appropriate manner? Like, we can say we want to use the money, then what's the next step to say, let's allocate it this way?
They have to authorize that by resolution, saying we're spending $5,000 on this, $30,000.
So that happens after, so this is just to say, let's use the money.
Yeah, all it's doing is appropriating the money, so it's there
Okay.
to.
Except that we specifically.
But I think
You specified what it was for, so it's for the specific things on that list.
So it's not for things outside that list. It's not for things outside the list, is
That's
why you
correct.
have the
We
list.
wouldn't have to do all the items in this list. We do the same thing with bond ordinances for road improvements. We just list all the roads without putting specific amounts, because as I say, with tiger hands, you have to go back and amend.
So you can't use it for something that's not on this list.
Right.
That's right, you'd have to amend the ordinance in order to add something to this list.
So just to be clear, that if we pass the ordinance tonight, or vote on the ordinance, we're saying you could spend up to that amount for up to those enumerated projects.
That's correct.
Or you can do less or none.
That's correct. You could go back later, if there's money left over, we do this all the time, you could cancel any surplus that's not spent. And it would go back into the open space trust fund, it would become unencumbered.
I assume all these things will be bid.
Yes, well.
The items that require bid, are they above a bid threshold?
So you have a chance to check whatever, very general estimates.
Yeah, but you'd have to get official estimates on it.
Anything over 7,500, we have to get 2 quotes. And anything over 40,000, we've got to get formally, publicly bid.
Greg, you want to speak again?
Yeah, sorry, it just feels to me like if we're replacing temporary lights that were put up by a youth organization in the past, would the town be willing to put up better lighting at, say, the basketball courts as well, temporary lights, buying them and putting them up, or other fields that other sports teams use? Or are we just, stepping in where a youth organization used to fund something?
It's a fair question.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Carrie?
I just have a question about portable lights. It seems as if they're portable, then we could have them at Veterans Field when we need them at Veterans Field, and we could have them at the basketball courts when we need them at the basketball courts. So it seems like an elegant solution to the problem of possibly being able to extend the ability to coach or have kids play. And that's the purpose of lights.
What's wrong with the lights? I keep hearing the basketball. It's a brand new basketball court. What's wrong with the lights at the basketball court?
I can tell you.
Tell me.
So,
Are
they're
there lights
dim,
there?
they're brand new. The lights are not brand new. The court's brand new, there was an extra $50,000 that was not appropriated to, the small hoops and or the lights. That was, so there was X amount of 183,000, something like that, that was appropriated for the courts. There was an extra $50,000 that was supposed to be spent for the lights and the other small hoops in the middle of the court, and that was never done. And does anybody know where that money is? Does anybody know why that wasn't done and where the money's been appropriated to?
The,
Ralph?
Hold on a second, hold on.
I don't know off the top of my head, Steve.
Hey, Doug,
At this point,
when-
but it's there, it's.
When we,
So why aren't we doing it?
when we had all those discussions about the courts, I remember seeing the pictures of what it was gonna look like before we ever even started the project. Was there talk of the lights? I don't remember any talk about lights.
I don't recall conversations about.
I don't either.
so they are the existing lights that were there. So
Yes.
right now there are lights on the basketball court, but they're dim, is what you're saying.
They're not
They're not designed to light the court.
They're not.
Oh,
more
they're
of
just-
security lighting,
okay.
JCP,
Okay.
now they do a little bit of the parking lot, a little bit of the court.
I'm unaware of the 50,000 you're mentioning.
Yeah, so Pat Bosworth, who spearheaded the whole basketball court project, and I know it's in a sum of $40,000 to $50,000 that wasn't spent in that original allocation, and it's still there. It's still somewhere that.
Well,
we could use.
we don't, is it still there, or maybe
We
not?
don't
We
know
need to
that.
investigate if
Yeah.
it's still there, please.
Well, I mean, still there in the sense that the money that was allocated for the courts wasn't spent in its entirety, and the lights were part of the.
We need to investigate if it was or was not spent, please.
Do that.
Yeah, okay.
Dan?
Sorry, I should just sit up.
Yeah, why don't you stay up front?
What I'm gonna talk about is the fact that the temporary lights at the high school, there's a system where you plug those in. So there was a conduit put in with plugs for these things. You can't initially pick these things up and put them somewhere else. As far as, if they're the same kind of lights, they're not batteries. It's not a battery we're talking about, it's you actually plug it in. So I believe that there was conduit put in Veterans Field in anticipation of some kind of lighting. So part of this package might be putting the outlets in that you can then plug these into, that you just can't pick them up and put them over at the basketball court because they don't have the conduit.
Correct. There's junction boxes with conduit that goes around the field. They put the lights next to the junction boxes so it can.
And you need the trucks with hitches and.
Yeah,
These are huge.
it's not like a laptop
Yes,
portable.
it's, yeah, you're not just, wheeling them down the street while you're walking, like a wagon.
Okay. Any other comments from the public on this? Pat, nothing? Okay.
Can I now comment?
So I will close the public hearing and,
Diane has something. Did you want to?
no, actually, we're closing the public hearing, but
Oh,
now we
sorry.
can discuss it, okay? So,
I would just like to say, Gina brought it up before, and I said it last meeting, we need to have a master plan for recreation and open space. And when money needs to be allocated for just plain land or passive or active recreation, we need to have a plan. And then when we want to spend money, it goes to the open space, the recreation committee, and they say, does it adhere to the master plan? It's either a yes or a no. There's a procedure in place. Instead of just, oh, we have money, this group wants this, let's give them that, we'll give them this because they showed up to a meeting. I mean, we can't just willy-nilly be spending money without any kind of a procedure or a plan in place going forward that is the same for every group and everybody who wants to do something.
well, suppose, can I just make a proposal? What if we add to this list the recreation plan, and then we can get real prices and then decide on priorities? And that way, at least it's in the ordinance as an option. And then depending on how far that money goes, because we'd still have to approve every single project, right, Jack?
Yes.
As we do them. So if we add the plan to the list, then we can debate it at later, but at least we have approved taking this money to do something.
Yes. Now, some of them, the smaller ones, may just be on a voucher.
So I'd be a little reluctant to do that because then we'd have a list that exceeds the amount of dollars that's in the
Well, we
ordinance.
don't know that because we don't really have
Well,
solid
we're pretty clear
prices.
because the project that you're talking about is up to 90 grand itself, right?
Right.
So it definitely would exceed the
Well, I think we should
146,000.
remove
So
the
I
lights.
propose that we remove the lights from this, and that we separately put forward an ordinance. I think in parallel or timing wise, consistent with when the referendum is voted on, to fund the comprehensive plan that you're referring to.
It doesn't
So-
have to be that comprehensive plan, I'm just talking
Not that
about
particular one, but
plan.
a comprehensive
No, I
plan
think it
gets
should be
funded, that's separate, not within this ordinance. That we go down what John just said, take the lights out for now, we'll cross that bridge when we get
And
there.
that's kind of without prejudice, and maybe revisit it a year.
Exactly.
Change situation, change, but right now, we don't need them.
Okay, so if we agree that we could do this, we could strike the lights from here.
Well, if you strike the lights, then you also don't need the storage upgrades, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Well, then, or.
Because the storage upgrades were for the lights.
Right.
Because there was some concern expressed that we don't have a place to store them, that's why we had the storage in conjunction with the lights. So I mean, you could probably knock 70,000 off of this, make it for 76,000 and leave the other items on the list, most of which I think are both important needs.
Dog stations
Handicap
at all
access.
parks, that's like an urgent thing?
Well, it's health and safety.
Something about the dog station.
And it,
I
and
think the original list had the dog stations at like $500, and was it your committee who thought that we could get the dog stations for about $275? Was that environmental that looked into that? Yeah.
again, I think to the extent that we talked about the fact,
There's different ways to handle it, I think.
Yeah.
yeah. But that's exactly why we don't have a line item
Right.
allocation
That
here.
would be a waste of time.
Because the line item allocations are based on early estimates, some of the early estimates may be higher or lower. That's, if we take out the lights and storage and we take this down by 70,000 to 76,000, I think we've got a near-term list. It makes sense that we're spending money on these improvements that are needed, and it's a reasonable amount.
I think the plan should be in there, 'cause I think we need it anyway, so.
Is the 90,000 for the plan, is that a hard and fast number, or would 76,000?
Well, with 76 was the recreation, if you added the pool, it came up to 90.
I would take the pool
That's
out.
my question, is that hard and fast, or if you came in and said, we have 76,000, can you do the both for that?
We can ask, I mean, I'm sure it's negotiable that, or we could take out one piece that we don't think we need out of that contract, but.
NTE to like, whatever that.
Well, I think.
You know, and a lot of these may come in at lower prices than we anticipated, so.
I think we're jumping the gun a little bit here, because if we're asking them for a comprehensive plan that's gonna encompass other ones, there's open space that's on our agenda for tonight, there's open space that we recently created, earlier this year. There's a question of whether or not this referendum in about 8 weeks from now we'll have a definitive answer on, gets passed, and if we give the outside organization direction about where our funding sources are and the magnitude of funding, I think that could make it easier for them to come up with a plan that's more executable. Here we're giving them sort of a vague, well, it might be this or it might be that, and give us two parallel plans. That could be more expensive. Just the plan could be more expensive.
If you look at what the details of that plan are, that's not gonna get done in 8 weeks. It's gonna be, because they're doing all the demographics.
So the first 8 weeks
all
is
they're
based
doing-
on maybe they'll get the money, maybe they won't, and then
No,
the
it
last.
has nothing to do with the money.
No, it's the
It has
money
to
is
do
the
with-
very last part of the funding piece is the last.
It has to do with the
It's
surveys
created-
and finding
I
out
think I had a
what
copy
the,
of
what
it. I'll tell you
they
what.
I think there's a
the
lot to do
community
with
wants.
If they're the planner, and they'll know if the referendum passes, and I hope it does, that they'll have this amount of money over the next 10 years, that's a lot different from in their planning and their prioritization than if they know they have far less money over the next 10 years. So I think it would be prudent for us to wait for the results of the referendum before we embark on paying them money for a plan that they may or may not be able to execute.
Here are the steps that are in this plan, okay? There's an evaluation phase, which is creating a master plan steering committee, a complete demographic analysis, a review of any previous studies, benchmark comparisons, a management structure, policy review. They do have a funding analysis of the last 5 years' budgets and capital budgets. Existing facility analysis. They have community meetings. They open space inventory, recreation programs assessment. I'm saying by the time they get to funding, I mean, this is going to be at least a 6-month, if not longer, process. My point is that I think if we at least start the process before the referendum, we're showing that we're committing to doing this right.
I would agree, because one of my takeaways from that big public meeting we had is that there's sort of a trust gap and a steward, rightly or wrongly, the stewardship of public money. So this goes a long way to what we heard. It's like, just sort of give us a plan, give us a master plan. We need it anyway, so I'd say put it in here. And whether not the rest have been successful or not, at least we'll have a blueprint to work off within the means that we're left with.
This is the opposite of the stewardship of public money. Here's why. If you commit $70,000 or $90,000 to this plan, and it's a broad-based plan across the whole borough and all of our open space and all of those needs, and then the referendum does not pass, which we cannot guarantee, we're committed to pay this $90,000 when we issue the contract. And we don't know if we're going to be able to execute the plan. We're talking about delaying this decision for 8 weeks, and then I'm fully supportive of the idea of doing this plan when we know the referendum's passed. That's all I'm saying. You're committing money before you even know if you're going to have the money to pay for the plan. You have a blueprint that you can't execute.
Well, you can still execute it, you still
may
have
just
some
take-
money,
it may
it
take
might
you
take
twice as
longer,
long.
but you
Or-
still have a direction. You still can
Twice
show
as long,
people in the
5 times
community
as long.
what you're planning to do,
I'm
and this
fully-
is
I'm
why the
fully-
referendum should pass.
I'm fully supportive of the idea of saying that we as a council will deliver if the referendum passes. First and foremost, number one priority, a formalized plan that's done by an outside expert for how to spend the money. I fully support that, 100%.
Is anything urgent?
But-
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I thought you were done. You're right, continue.
Pat, you talk.
If the open space master plan was $10,000, and I don't know how much the environmental master plan was, why is rec 70,000?
90,000.
That's even more.
That's this one company.
It's-
Nobody
and-
negotiated
We
it
haven't
down yet.
negotiated, we don't have an RFP, we're not even talking about doing an
You
RFP.
don't have a master planner like we use, like the plan.
That's what these people are doing, except they're going, what they're doing is looking at every group that uses our fields, how much they use them, what their enrollments are, all those kinds of,
But they can just get that from the rec department, can't they?
What you can do,
didn't we try that for the open space master plan?
what a lot of towns do is put together an RFP for the kind of plan that we want or that suits our needs, and then obtain bids from companies like that company
Right.
to find out how much it would cost to get what we want and we need. That's just one price from one company, and there's a lot of planning companies that do recreational plans, so.
So let me ask a question.
There were two
Ralph,
others that
could we go to RFP without having the funds committed? Can we ask for RFPs without committing the funds?
Yes, absolutely.
So why don't we do an RFP right now for the plan, and we'll get these people in, and we'll have, as soon as we can, we'll get bids back, and we'll have a comparative analysis of the different companies that can do it, how much they'll charge to do it.
Then
And
we should table this until we get that information.
Well,
these
I
two
don't
things are not
agree.
related to each other. They
Yes.
don't need to be.
I know.
They don't need to be
Because they're
combined.
using the same money pool.
But Christine,
Well-
Christine raised the issue that I raised earlier when I said, is that 90,000 a hard and fast number? So this company came to us because they originally made the proposal about the pool. And then I guess they tacked on, well, by the way, we can do other recreational areas. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so we don't even know if that's their expertise. We know the pool's
No,
their
it is.
expertise.
It is.
Is it? Okay.
They were recommended by recreation, that's how
For
we
the
got
pool?
them. For both.
For everything?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where, and
So-
I
but the
asked
point
Cheryl,
is
there
that
were two other
we could get
companies.
other bids, so if we're saying, because we're not, at least if I heard from Jack correctly, we're not actually committed, if we were to pass this tonight, to spending any of these dollars.
That's correct.
So if we say, okay, we're gonna do away with the lights in the storage, so we have an extra approximately $75,000, and we wanna devote that's our budget for a plan, and then we put out an RFP, yeah, I can live with that.
So
But I
then-
do think, just to Diane's point, this list wasn't put together willy-nilly, I think that's the words you used.
Not at all.
This came from, originally, culled from the mayor's ad hoc committee, then it was farmed out to 4 major advisory committees, they came back with their thing, this is what we came up with, so this was.
But that's not
thought-
even,
This was
that's
thought through, sorry.
a little fraction of
Right,
the
so-
entire
But
list.
they were
that was
asked to
put out. So-
prioritize, and that's exactly what they did.
Right.
And some of these things, are relatively time sensitive in the sense that, we wanna have, for example, the drainage on the lower polo fields ready for the spring. because they were essentially unusable when it was really wet.
Yeah.
So there are some things that we have to act on to make these things usable.
I understand that, but I
Well,
think
correct
part of
me.
that money should go towards a
All right,
study.
so let's do
I'm not,
this.
you're
Wait,
not
wait.
arguing with it.
Let me make a suggestion. We're gonna take out the lights, we're gonna take out the storage upgrades. Let's put in the plan, but then let's do the RFP. And let everyone know we're putting out an RFP for, a plan, and, you know, it's within the budget that falls within this, whatever's left from the other packages. Does that sound like
Fair enough.
a good deal?
Can we move forward with any of these without, like, correct me if I'm wrong, there's one in here, drainage, lower
Yes,
polo,
we could
left
do that.
field.
By resolution, we can do
Yes.
that then.
How
Like,
about-
Because you haven't adopted the ordinance
Is that
appropriately.
right?
Money, so if you amend the ordinance
Baseball
tonight,
field?
We need to
we're getting
extend,
the old pros of this, we'll have to amend by motion to continue the public hearing and the ordinance is amended, adopt it next time.
because you're saying that these are significant changes.
Yes.
Because if it was a non-material change, we could have done it.
That's correct.
I mean, these are all normal maintenance
so
of
even
things
just,
that.
just crossing out two things, is that considered too big a change?
I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's because somebody in the public may want to argue to leave them in, so it's still a substantial change.
Okay.
And then
Well, I
we
think
have,
adding the plan is a major change though, too.
Yes.
Yeah, but-
Which she was, I think she was gonna do it in
Right.
two
Oh, I
phases,
got
but,
you, okay,
yeah.
gotcha, I got you.
Yeah, I was gonna try and do it in two pieces.
Now, the other
Which
thing
is
is,
a
if
good
you're in a
thought.
hurry to do some of the things, you could adopt them tonight and then amend it by ordinance.
It's still the same time frame though.
But you could start on some of the things.
well, we
That's
said
the
the
only
dugouts
thing.
at the Rose Bowl were a safety concern, right?
Well, it's not baseball season right now.
Yes, it is, it's fall ball right now,
Fall
fall
ball?
baseball.
Oh.
Is Greg still here?
Greg's here. You playing
Fall
on
ball.
Rose Bowl now?
Yeah, 4 days a week.
Told you.
Okay, so wait, so the
Doug,
council,
yes.
what I last heard you say is the council could pass this as it's written,
Yes,
then come back next meeting and amend it, sort of in line with what the mayor was suggesting.
that's right. If you're in a hurry to do some of the things that are on this list, then yes, you could do that. Then we could do another ordinance amending this ordinance.
To swap out the
to
two
swap
items
out
for
some-
another.
The lights for the plant.
But we don't gain any time doing that.
We do, we gain time on the other items,
Oh, on
like
the other items.
the dugouts at the Rose
That's right.
Bowl,
You have the
or
money to do the other
the
items.
drainage at the Polo Grounds, which we might do before the colder weather comes.
Doug?
Yeah, we're not gonna be able to do the dugouts in a couple of weeks.
No.
That's not gonna happen, and the drainage, we have to, if that's what the council wants to do, you have to apply for permits, I mean, it's a long process.
Right, so
Just have
start.
So do we wanna get started on the process, or,
We can get started, but, I mean, if you're talking about.
we're trying to find out if it's a difference if we start now or if we wait 2 weeks? Does it
But-
matter?
No.
Because, you know, one of the things I'm thinking of is it's gonna get colder eventually. And
We can do the drainage in the cold weather.
you can, okay.
So we don't have that urgency, like it's not gonna happen while they're playing now. We're not gonna get it done for fall ball anyway. Okay.
So we make the amendments as
That's probably
discussed,
easier, yeah.
and then pass it
Next,
at the next
yeah.
meeting.
Yes, that's
Okay.
cleaner.
Sound good?
Yes.
Good compromise, guys, thank you.
So we need another motion to amend
Okay,
and continue the public hearing, and Anthony will publish notice of the amendment.
okay.
I move that we amend to eliminate 2 items, storage upgrades and the lights at Veterans Field, and add, should we call it RFP or we call it what?
A recreation plan with them.
Creation of
You're just
recreation,
appropriating money for the creation of a.
creation of recreation, comprehensive recreation plan.
Right, you don't have to talk about the RFP, that's just.
Creation of comprehensive recreation plan.
Recreation and open space.
Now, do we have?
Recreation
to do,
open space.
Do we have to do a resolution authorizing the RFP or not?
We have an open space plan.
Yeah, I know, that's a little bit funny to say it that way.
Stuff we have right now.
Yeah, but I don't know if we should
No,
say,
it's
it
just a
makes it implied that
recreation
we don't have
plan.
it.
It's strictly a recreation. Even though you might be using open space
Okay.
property, it's a recreation plan. It's for the use of the open space.
We'll have to make sure the wording's correct in the RFP when we get there.
I think you can have a consensus to go out with the RFP, but I wouldn't do it as part of this motion because it just.
No, I just wondered if we needed an authorizing
Certainly consensus
resolution.
about it.
But just,
I don't think you need a
okay, so everyone's okay with
Tom
us
moved, so we
doing
second.
I'll second whatever Tom says.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we'll
Can
put
I
that on.
add one thing?
Sure.
Since we're talking about a recreation plan and a comprehensive recreation plan, is there any way that maybe the rec committee could, work together with the school board, since they're so intertwined with our fields and everything, like, so that this plan can be like together with the school board?
I think that's part of, because they're gonna look at how all the fields are used, and the
Right.
school uses our fields. So it's all, they're gonna look at how often it's used and who's using it, so I'm sure it'll all.
Should we
be
ask the board to be, have some skin in the
Well, we
game?
can also make that part of the RFP, that it's in consultation with, school use, and we can put that wording in there.
And would the school contribute to something like that, like?
You can enter into a
financially?
shared services agreement with the school.
I think we should at least investigate it. I mean, they're using the fields as much as we are.
I have a question.
We actually have, we have that kind of relationship, because we use their basketball courts, for summer
Yeah,
stuff,
it's
so.
very, we're
use our
very
passwords.
intertwined, and I think this is a good time, if we're
Yeah,
really
I
getting
think so,
everything
too.
out, this is a good time to bring them in and have them
So
participate.
between now and next meeting, maybe we could have that
Share the
discussion.
costs.
I have a question. This includes passive,
Yes,
okay.
or any kind of recreation, passive, active. Okay,
So for the wording, can we say passive and active recreation plan?
Yeah, that's better.
Comprehensive, passive and active recreation plan.
That's better.
that sounds good. I like that. Okay, moving on to the next, we have a public hearing on ordinance 2019-1813, an ordinance concerning the Borough Property Maintenance Code and supplementing and amending Chapter 11 of the Borough Code entitled Property Maintenance. And as I think Chad, who's the chair of the Housing Committee, mentioned before, what this ordinance does is gives us a little more enforcement teeth. So if someone gets a notice of violation and does not respond, we get to the point where we can put a lien on their property, and it would be added to their tax bill or whatever, and so that we could get the work done and they would end up paying for it through their tax bill. So and this was, I think Doug, you brought this to us, didn't you? Yeah, so we're kind of hoping this will help us with enforcing some of the residential and commercial, it's both.
I'll second it.
It's open, it's a public hearing.
Oh, I thought you were running, sorry.
Yeah, we're doing a public hearing. Steve?
So this is residential and commercial.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue I brought up where there's commercial equipment in people's driveways, and I think the resident had a bench warrant out for his arrest,
Yes.
and there's a loophole where you just can't do anything about it. Does this mean that you could go and remove and tow and remove
Yes.
the equipment and trucks and stuff like that?
Yes, and that is the plan for that particular case, is they will be removing it, I think bringing it down to the quarry, and then putting a lien on.
On the property?
Yeah, they were waiting for us to do this, so, yeah. Anyone else from the public want to be heard on this? All right, I will close the public hearing.
Second.
Um,
You moved it, right?
who moved it?
No,
You.
Oh,
no.
somebody has to read
Yeah,
it.
sure, the mayor.
Some-
Said the mayor moved.
Okay, so I sit on housing committee, I'll move it.
Okay, I'll second.
Like, do I have to officially read it, Anthony, or can I just say I'll move 2019-1813? Okay.
Okay, this is a, roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Rodet?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ms. Samara?
Yes.
Okay, now, we have the public hearing on ordinance 2019-1814, which is appropriating $630,000 from the Borough Open Space Trust Fund for the purchase of 261 Claremont Road. This is next to the 251, which we purchased a few months ago. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, it's got a vacant eyesore house on it. And it connects to Peter's Track and the other piece that we bought, so that we have one consistent, I guess it's 40 acres now, right? It would be.
Yes.
Yes. So, Steve.
So, when we were talking about buying 251, the question was brought up numerous times, why don't we buy 261? And the comment was, we can't get a hold of them. Right?
They, for years, they've been asking for $1.4 million for it.
But that's not what was said when the question was asked.
That's correct. Since then, they've.
The question was, why aren't we buying 261? and we can't get a hold of them.
And we got a hold of them, but they just weren't.
They wouldn't
They were
negotiate,
from their numbers.
and
No,
their number.
I was here, like, it was like, well, they won't, we can't communicate with them, so it's odd that we went from buying 251 with a house does anybody know what exactly we can use that house for? Is it specified?
Let me count the ways.
Huh?
It can be a nature center, it can be used for cooking, it can be used for the scouts.
That's with getting
It can be used
half
for
of the money back from the
Green Acres.
The Green Acres, so it can be used as a rec center or something.
Well, it's directly tied to
It has to
open
be
space
tied to
enjoyment.
outside recreational type activities, so scouts who, do the outside
Gardening,
stuff.
cooking.
Gardening, nature center, anything that relates to outdoor recreation.
During our last open space meeting, we actually brainstormed as many ideas as we could think of for potential uses, and then we forwarded the list to Green Acres to make sure which items on the list would be approved, which ones wouldn't be, because we also don't want to break the rules, because like you said, we're getting reimbursed from Green Acres, so they have certain limitations on what we can and can't do. So we're in the process of evaluating all of the options, but we have a long list of possibilities, which is then going to go to be culled and determine which ones are consistent with Green Acres.
So who decides?
Green Acres decides which ones are consistent.
I mean, the list, but then who decides what we actually use it for, or does
Well,
that
that's
have
for
to be-
further discussion. I think
Yeah.
the open space committee can come back with a list of approved uses, and then the council and the public will have to evaluate it. That's part of a survey that we're gonna conduct. We're gonna meet with the closest neighbors. Our order of events from the open space committee was to engage the local adjacent neighbors first to get their feedback and input, then go to a broader survey of the public, and then the broader survey of the public in conjunction with the data information we're getting from Green Acres will help us decide what our options are, and then ultimately through the overall process, we have to determine what we will actually do.
So it's a lengthy process.
It
So
is.
what happens with the house during the winter? Does it stay heated?
We're maintaining the house for now.
So the water stays on, stays heated, we don't winterize it, like we wouldn't shut the water off and shut the heat off, and so who pays for the upkeep of the house? Does it come out of open space money?
No.
Or is it?
Gosh, it's
The
borough
borough.
operating.
Wouldn't the use of the house be in the purview of, the, master plan for recreation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
So any improvements to that house would come from borough, like capital money, or would it come from open space?
It could come from either source.
Yeah,
Improvements
but
can come from the open
capital
space.
improvement would be open space, within right now that 20%.
It could be a combination though.
20%.
Yeah.
We're not limited, as long as we're consistent with what Green Acres says we can use it for. We could use open space for capital improvements, or we could use capital dollars for capital improvements.
Is this house, 261, is that functioning, is it heated, is it, so we're gonna
No,
maintain both these?
261, we're not
Oh, sorry,
maintaining.
that-
No, 261 is a knockdown.
It's gonna be knocked down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the advantage to that second property is you can widen the entranceway to make accessibility easier and
Safer.
improve visibility, so it's safer, because the driveway to 251 is, kind of uphill and narrow,
So
and add parking or whatever.
once we get to what we can use the house for and develop Peter's track, say down the road, nobody's using Peter's track, nobody's using this house. Is it an option to sell this property to, get tax revenue from somebody owning this property, or we have it, bought it, we're just gonna just let it sit there and
Once it's in our-
possibly nobody's gonna ever walk in?
Do you really
Track.
think that if we develop Peter's Track into a park, no one's gonna use it?
Yes.
Do you
I
not
don't.
see the value of open space preservation?
Well, I do see the value, because it was 30 acres that was never gonna be touched, and we should have just left it and
We
had
are.
these other properties be a revenue for the town as tax generating. So we could have just left Peter's Tract as is in woods, and never would have been developed, and no one would have gone in there, and it would have been wildlife and great, and it would have been open space. We don't need to buy these other properties to potentially have 30 people a year maybe walk around that Peter's Tract. So, thank you.
Anyone else from the public want to be heard on this ordinance? I will close the public hearing. Okay, let's see, you want to move that since it's open space?
Okay.
Go ahead, Christine.
Oh, that's right, you're both on open
Um,
space, I'm sorry.
appropriating, I move that we appropriate ordinance 2019-18-14, appropriating $630,000 from the Borough Open Space Trust Fund for the purchase of 261 Claremont Road.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Zamara?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Okay, the next ordinance for. Oh, yeah, you have to step out for
Can I,
this one.
maybe, can we table this one? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, you
This is
can
the next one,
do
too.
whatever you want.
It's the next one, too.
Yeah.
I think this one, do we wanna table this one?
I think that's a good idea.
What do you mean table?
This is the one that's appropriating the open
No,
space.
no, actually, we can, let me do that, we can approve both.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, we can adopt both and then
Right.
cancel one.
Oh, okay.
yes,
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
mistake.
yeah.
Okay.
So what these two ordinances, one is appropriating $1,550,000 from Open Space Trust Fund, and the other is bonding for that same amount of money to purchase 271 Minebrook Road. The reason we are doing two ordinances is to give us the option, if we purchase it with the Open Space Fund money, it's done. We can never subdivide it. We get the whole property and it's ours. If we bond for it, we can then subdivide and sell off other pieces that people may be interested, whether it's the mansion and the gardens, a piece of property that someone has attached to their property. And then what we would do is reappraise the property once it's subdivided. The piece that's remaining that the borough wants to keep, we would reappraise, and that's the piece we would submit to Green Acres for funding. And then, once that's done, we can then refund the borough from the open space fund. And
For the
pay
open space portion.
Right, and pay off the bonds with that money. So it's a different process, but it allows us more flexibility, but we could do either. So what we were going to do is pass both, but it doesn't mean we have to use both. It's just there if we decide that's what we want to do, but it gives us the flexibility to decide if we want to subdivide, because we do have a couple of, actually 3 different parties that are interested in pieces of this property. And, I know, we're not looking to maintain a historic building. So if we have someone interested in buying that mansion, would be an advantage
Consideration.
to, it would be worth looking at. And we need time to explore how we do that, what's involved. It's gotta go to the Board of Adjustment, there's, a process. So that's why there's 2 here. I know it's confusing.
Can I clarify also one more point?
Yeah.
Is that ultimately the goal would be to reduce the overall expense to the
Right.
borough. Why? So doing it this way is a way to keep flexibility and have options to reduce our overall costs. And if we just chose one choice versus the other, would limit us more.
With respect to the bond ordinance 1816, as you recall, we did this on the fly last time, and I did a title. It was introduced in title only, and then after the fact, bond council prepared it. But I would, before you adopt that, I would ask that you amend section 3, because it talks about for open space purposes.
Right.
I would ask that you amend it just to provide for public purposes.
Right.
So, or else we're gonna find ourselves in the same, it'll defeat the purpose of having this bond ordinance.
I have a question for you,
Sure.
Jack. If we are gonna appropriate the $1,550,000 from open space, and let's say we decide to go with the second option,
Yes.
with the bond, do we have to have another ordinance, or can we just not use all that money?
You
from-
cancel
We'll
it.
cancel it, so it's
We
not
would just-
encumbered anymore.
We would just cancel that and then have another one for the whatever amount, if for open spaces,
Oh, I see what you're saying, we
Oh.
could probably use this one and then
that's
just
what I'm saying,
cancel
can
the
we just
balance.
use
Yeah,
this
cancel the
one and then
balance.
cancel the balance?
Right.
I just wanna know what the procedure
Yeah.
was, okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, because we're essentially doing that with something related to the sewer. There was unencumbered funds that we didn't use, and we're
We
putting it
do
back
it
in
all
the
the time
fund.
with roads.
Right.
and various projects.
So, it's probably easier if you have comments on both of them. Let's do the 2 public hearings together rather than separately, so anyone that would like to comment on this, please feel free. Dan? I saw you nodding your head back there.
This is the reason I came to this meeting, and really I just want to thank you for your flexibility on this and for thinking ahead about what might or might not happen, because a lot of people, they buy these things and they get this house, and they, like the farmstead in Basking Ridge, Berners Township had no idea what they were getting. And while that's worked out, it's taken, 20 years.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
I just want to say that I'm pretty glad with the way that the whole discussion went on the previous ordinance about the plan, the need for an open space plan, because you don't really always have control over the timing of 3 quick purchases of open space. You've got to have willing sellers, and you've got to be in a position where you think you have a use for it. But now, with 3 new properties, potentially 2 already, having a plan is going to be utterly key, because our thoughts about what we might do with 251 and 261 might be changed because of the advent of 271 and a plan from outside, and a little more just somebody thinking outside the box and within the box of what we want, I think is a really good idea.
Thank you. The other thing I wanted to mention is when we started this whole process of acquiring these 3 new properties, we had about $7 million in the open trust fund. Our CFO went through how this would all impact our account between the interest and the refunds we get from Green Acres. We would still end up with about $5.5 million, I think.
More than that, I think 5.8.
5.8
Yeah.
when it's all done. It takes time to get the money back from Green Acres, because we only get $500,000 a year. But at the end of all this process, we still will have a healthy amount in there. Because I know some people were concerned, what if, Meadowbrook comes up or something like that, and we need to contribute $3-4 million. We will still have a healthy balance in that account, so. Gina?
I have a question along the same lines of what Steve asked about the 261 Claremont. With this, the house still needs to be maintained until, if we go with the bonding and the subdivision, the house is still going to be.
271.
Yeah, the yards, everything. Is that going to be done through normal Bernardsville maintenance money, or is that done through 20% open space money?
To just, mowing the grass and that kind of thing, and it would be done through the budget. But we probably won't be that long a period of time. I mean, 271 Minebrook.
Yes.
Because between the time we haven't closed on it yet, it's not ours yet, and it's going to take a while for that to happen. And during that time, we can be negotiating with the people who are interested in subdividing. So hopefully it won't be more than a few months between us closing and then, negotiating a sale on the other pieces.
I mean, there's a lot of what ifs. So, I mean, the what ifs, the person who wants to buy the house could back out. The people who want the property could back out. So do we have a plan B if we purchase this home that that is historic and that we do not want to end up maintaining, and we're hoping for the best, but if something falls through, what's been discussed about that? Anything?
I think there were a number of buyers interested in the house. It wasn't just one, there was a bidding war going on. So it's not like this is the only game in town. And wouldn't we have to put it back out to bid?
And we could,
Yes.
yeah.
So we have to bid.
We have to bid it. We can't just say, oh, that's a good deal, here, it's yours. We have to have a public bid for it, which may bring out more people. If it doesn't, if nobody bids on it and then it falls through, and we've already subdivided it, then we could still sell it at market value, right?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, ideally, it sounds good, but I'm a little nervous that we're kind of getting into the real estate business as a borough, but, okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Greg?
Yeah, I think it's a really well thought out plan as an alternative to just doing open space, because I think the questions or the potential to knock down a house or find something presents some challenges. So I just thought it was a really
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, so I will close the public hearing. So now, let's see, we're gonna move Ordinance 2019-18-15. Who would like to move that?
I move ordinance 2019-18-15 appropriating $1.55 million from the Borough Open Space Trust Fund for the purchase of 271 Minebrook Road.
Second. Pass it on final reading and adopt it. You want to just say that?
I move to pass ordinance 2019-18-15 on final reading and adopt as published.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
He's
sorry,
in here.
sorry.
He's recused.
Sorry about
He's
that.
recused.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ms. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, now you can move to the next one. Just go like I move to pass and then.
I move to pass ordinance 2019-18-16 on final reading and adopt as published.
Before you do that, I would ask.
Oh, amend.
to
We need the
amend.
amendment.
Okay, I-
To replace the words open
Right.
space with public, so it's purchasing for a public purpose.
I move to modify section 3 of ordinance 2019-18-16 to reflect for public purposes, not open space. And then I move to pass,
So, wait, we
so
need a
gotta-
second on that, on the
Second.
amendment?
I'll second.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed?
I have to abstain
Okay.
from the bond
Oh,
because of
right.
work stuff.
Okay,
So
so we have enough? Yeah, you still
Four.
have 4, yep. Okay, now we can move the ordinance.
Okay, I move to pass ordinance 2019-18-16 as amended on final reading and to adopt as published.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Mrs. Mayor?
Abstain.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Okay,
Let's bring John back.
Okay.
yeah,
I'll go
John
get
can
it.
come back.
Yeah.
Want me to move these two?
And now we are moving, yeah, why don't you do that, Chris? Move the first one there.
Go for John.
Now you can start reading it.
I move that ordinance 2019-18-17 appropriating the sum of $45,000 from the sewer utility capital fund for preliminary engineering expenses and pumping station landscaping be introduced by title and passed on first reading, published according to law, and the public hearing is scheduled for a meeting beginning 7 p.m. Monday, September 23rd, 2019.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
So this references landscaping. Is there something the Shade Tree Committee can weigh in on terms of the landscaping recommendations? Or do we just accept this?
I think that's something you want to talk to John. I don't think there's anything that's tree based. I think it's all gonna be shrubbery and things.
I know the Shade Tree Committee actually is a bit of a misnomer because it also handles shrubbery and things like that.
I mean,
We have time to refer it to them, they can look at
it'll
it,
be
right?
consistent with everything else.
I just want to include them.
This
in
is,
their
this is
opinion,
going
I
on
think.
for September 23rd, so there's time for them to look at it, right?
Okay.
And again, this is just appropriating money as opposed to authorizing the work.
Right, and then there were two parts to it. It's the preliminary engineering services on Dayton Crescent, which was $26,000, and the landscaping was $19,000 at Maple Village and Hill.
Because it's just, it actually came to my attention as we were planning plantings along 202 that the Shade Tree Committee actually weighs in not just on trees, but on hedges and shrubbery and things like that.
I didn't know that.
So, okay, I'll just make sure that Ann Wassiter, the chairman of that committee, knows about this.
Okay.
There was another station I had asked you about that somebody had.
Hill and Maple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that?
It's included in both of these.
That is in here, so that one will be done. Excellent. Okay.
All right, I move that ordinance 2019-18-18 concerning public safety communications towers.
What did we vote on this?
We didn't vote on
We
it.
didn't vote, we didn't vote on it.
I'm sorry, we did it. Oh, that's
Oh,
right,
I
because
thought
you
we-
asked a
I'm
question, so
sorry,
we didn't
I
get
thought
to
we
the
voted.
vote.
I'm
So
sorry.
this is just a voice vote, yes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're good. There you go. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I move that ordinance 2019-18-18 concerning public safety communications towers and supplementing and amending the Borough Administrative Code as set forth in Chapter 2 of the Borough Code be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. Monday, September 23rd, 2019.
I'll
Second.
Okay, so this is just
what Glenn
for
was talking
police
about.
communications.
Right?
Yeah.
This is what you were talking about last meeting.
Correct. Because it's just a local policy that was included
Right.
in our administrative code that all boroughs' capital projects have to go to the planning board and get site plan approval to see variances. So So all this is doing is excluding public safety communications towers from that requirement. It's not an MLUO requirement or anything, it's just.
Right. Excellent, okay, so we had a second, so now we just need a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to resolutions, I think we are pulling out
175 and 176.
175 and 176, because John will have to step out for those two.
You're not gonna change for 175.
Oh, okay. So we are doing 19167 to 174, and then 177 and 178.
I had a question about 172 and 178. Not that I necessarily need to pull them out, but I just had a clarification
Yeah,
question.
no, that's fine.
Should I ask them now or later?
No, go ahead. Yeah, well, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so on 172, how do we determine the value of the property, which happens to be a vehicle? Does that come from Blue Book? I mean, how do we dispose of it? By auction? It's more informational for me, but how do we get the best price for that vehicle?
It's an auction.
It's an auction, I think we determined it was a towing fee plus a storage fee.
It was a car that was impounded by the police department. It's a gas station, one of our towers now has it. The car doesn't run at all. I think it's a 91 Malibu. I applied and got a junk title. The tow company is entitled to some of their tow money for impounding and storage, so the car goes to auction for a minimum of what the tow bill told me and some storage. I think he might have told me $295. Anything over $295, the borough would keep. Right. $295, the tow company would get. However, it's probably gonna not sell, and the tow company will just keep the car as the price of the.
It's a fiction that allows us to give the towing company the vehicle.
And we've had this, it'll be a year in January, so it's been a long process.
Good to know. Okay, thanks. And then on 178, about the appointment of a municipal prosecutor, since our current prosecutor retired, there was a committee that came up with his name. Who represents Bernardsville on that committee?
Me,
You do,
Ralph.
okay. So we're.
That's right, I forgot you volunteered for that.
Sorry?
What name did you say?
There's a new
This
prosecutor.
is a new prosecutor.
He lives in
because the current
Bernardsville.
prosecutor retired.
Yeah, I know that. What's the name of the new?
It's in the file. I don't have his name, but and so we're comfortable that he's got the requisite experience, et cetera, to represent us. Okay.
Our,
Can I hear
the
the
prosecutor, the former prosecutor who retired, he was questioning him at the meeting with us.
So he got
And
the.
he recommended
All right,
all
so
three.
I know the current prosecutor, Miles Winder,
Yes.
he gave his blessing to this guy.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Would you have his name?
Do we know the name?
Yeah, we have it's in there. His name's James.
Is it Jim
begins with-
Porfido?
Yes,
Porfido,
yes.
Okay. Yes, I
Yes.
can
James
very much
Porfido.
say he is, yes.
Okay.
And it's only for the balance of 2019.
Yeah, he's done this before, it's not his first time, this is basically his living.
Any other questions on any of the resolutions? Okay, do I have a motion for 167 to 164, 177 to 178?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Merrick?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to step out and I'll do the other two?
So Jack had a change or something.
Yeah, Jack, you had
And
something on
These
one?
resolutions were prepared prior to the last meeting, before we came up with the two-pronged approach, appropriating money. So 175, again, talks about for recreation and open space
Right.
purposes. So I would ask that before you adopt it, you just delete all references to
Open space.
recreation and open space
Right.
purposes. It's just authorizing the contract.
Okay. So do we need a motion to do that?
No, because it hasn't been acted on, so you'll be acting on the revised motion.
Revised, okay, so it is
doesn't refer
revised.
to that.
And just for those who's wondering why John keeps stepping out, his wife works for Keller Williams, not directly on this property, but is related, so he's recusing himself.
So the change on 176, Jack?
Is
No
the
change on
same.
176, just on, or 170,
The change
Yes.
is 175.
175, right, fine.
No, both 175 and
Oh,
176
yeah.
say open
Yeah, you're
space.
right.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
It's the same
Yes,
So-
for
both
both.
of them.
Yeah, for both of them then. Delete all
any references to recreation open
Alright, so
space.
who are we directing to remove those? Anthony?
Anthony and I will work it out.
Okay.
All right, so, do you have a motion for 175, 176?
I move that we pass 19-175 and 19-176 with the changes as discussed tonight.
I'll second.
Oh no, this is roll call, sorry.
Mr. Mara?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Thanks.
Can I go
Okay.
get, I'll go get,
We have a letter from Olivia Manning here for trunk or treat. What we're looking for, there was a conflict with the library because they were not going to participate on the trunk or treat. Looking for an alternate location. Olivia came up with using the train station side where the farmer's market is, and on a Sunday so that we're not conflicting with them. You want to come up and explain?
I just wanted to make some adjustments because we've since, as our planning committee has met, we've since kind of made some changes to accommodate for a lot of different things. Sadly, the whole concept of a fall festival is just not going to work in that location, especially with vendors. I had spoken with Anthony about the whole vendor fees that the borough charges, which I was not aware of, so I did not have a chance to put that into my fees to the vendors, so I would have been so out of money, it would have been ridiculous. So we decided to just modify the event. We will keep it on the Saturday, however, we would do the evening instead, just the evening hours.
Just the evening, okay.
Yes, instead of doing it all day long, it would be from 5, advertised from 5 to 8, but we would request for using the space from 4 to 9 to set up, obviously for an hour, and then make sure we break down and clean up at the end of the event. It literally is just a trunk or treat. We'll have a few little activities for kids. Jessica from Fairy Tale Inc. will have a little craft. We'll do, like a pumpkin ring toss or something fun, just for a little extra. And then we wanted to show a movie, which is something else I wanted to bring to your attention to see if that would be acceptable to do. We have a 16-foot inflatable screen from Wavelength Audio Video, so we would be using that and our sound system associated with it to show a Halloween themed movie for
Why don't you
families.
put the screen?
That would be the question as well, what would be the appropriate place? I don't believe it would interfere with a heavy amount of trains running at that time. We can sort of turn it so that it's not interfering with the traffic on the street, but at the same time we want that heavy traffic to see what we have going on.
you have to let them see the movie as they're driving
That's
down.
kind of the
Remember, like the old
idea.
drive-in movies
Yeah.
when you
To
go
be,
by
to
and
be
see
honest, this is
dating
sort of a
myself.
marketing ploy, right? That's what we need for Bernardsville is we need more marketing so that people come here. If people that are just passing through go, oh, that's cool, I want to come back here. What else do they have going on? Then it just gives more incentives for people to want to come here. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, and that's why I thought the train station spot was a good place because it's a prominent location in as close to center of town as possible.
So what do they do for chairs? Do they just sit on the ground?
It's a bring your own chair, just like
Or
it would
bring a
be in a
blanket
park,
or-
bring your own blanket type of thing. I mean, it's pavement, so it's not comfortable to lay the blanket down,
Yeah.
but you probably want the blanket to cover you because it'll probably be a little chilly. Who knows at that time of year, but that's really the idea. So bring your own chair, sit and hang out. It'll be a short kids movie, an hour and a half.
Friday the 13th.
Maybe, or Hocus Pocus. I don't know. We haven't gotten that far yet. I want to make sure we can do it before we choose what movie we're watching. And that's essentially it. So
This
that's
is
the
Saturday, the 27th?
The 26th.
26th.
So it's not, you're not doing the trunk or treat, people aren't bringing their cars in?
Yes, so the primary,
confused, I'm sorry.
the primary event is the trunk or treat.
And that's
and
from
then
when?
From 5 to 8.
Okay, so then you do the decorating
And the
cars
movie,
and
all of
that
this
whole
will be
thing,
happening all
right.
at the same time. So the movie will be happening at the same time. So people will walk around and then they
Got
will
it.
leave, right? So I'm trying to get folks to stay. I'm gonna work with the station and Bistro 7-3 to have dinner specials, drink specials, so that the parents can go have dinner or a drink and the kids can hang out and watch a movie. It's to get people to stay instead of just walking around a trunk or treat and then leaving.
And you'll have enough space then for the trunk or treat and the milling around and the movie?
Yeah, it'll be plenty of space for that. That's why we
That's
got
great
rid of the
idea.
whole Fall Fest concept because there was just too much for that small space. So we're just kind of working with what we got.
Sounds great.
So now, do you need porta johns? Cause I think
That's another
we have
question
to
I have too.
approve that as well
Do
if
we
you
need
wanna.
porta johns in that space, or is it because it's such a short amount of time we don't necessarily need them? I don't know how that would, who that
I
would.
think you got a lot of little kids, I think
Yeah.
you need access to a bathroom.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. We can.
Yeah, it's just that we have to approve that if you wanna use, better to ask for them and not get them than.
Does the farmer's market do that? Cause they're there for a lot longer than we are, so.
No, but people buy their stuff and go home, they're there, you
Okay,
know,
so for
20
people to
minutes to
hang out
half an
a little
hour.
Yeah.
So,
That's-
and there is a bathroom in the train, I don't know if it's open all the time, is
Yeah, I
it?
don't know if in the evening.
No,
Sure,
it's
sanitary.
disgusting.
Porta johns were like
They'd be
cleaner.
nicer, they'd be nicer.
Gross.
Yeah.
I could go clean it for you.
Thanks, appreciate that. You go.
Okay.
So do we just have to, do we have to do something to prove, or just we're in consensus that it's,
I think just consensus.
okay.
Yeah.
And
And we're in consensus on the porta potty thing.
if you need them, yeah, we're
I
okay
would
with
think
that.
that one or two, I can't imagine any more than that.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Okay,
Thanks,
good,
Olivia.
thank you.
Awesome, thank you guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
The next is it's a terrific project that Ralph brought to us and Jeff's been running with. Is having banners for veterans on the sign, on the lampposts down there. So I'll let you explain what's going on with that.
Sure, let me, actually, it's in your packet, I've also circulated a sample. Pass this around, but you see these in a lot of towns, Scotch Plains, Summit, Fanwood, et cetera, et cetera. So we've taken the best of what we could find and found the vendor that's been using them, and we would propose, and I should start by saying, this has been a joint project between the borough, with the VFW, downtown Bernardsville, the Cultural Arts Committee and the Recreation Committee, and some help from Dan Lincoln, who is unofficially representing the historic preservation. So the idea being is that on the major holidays related to veterans, Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Veterans Day, those months, we would have these banners placed on their light poles, and they would be purchased by families who wanted, or donors, sponsors who wanted to honor a veteran. So the cost to the borough would be limited to a one-time cost of the brackets that we would need to put on the poles that would come in at under $3,000. And then the individual banners, which would be approximately somewhere in the order between $40 and $50, would be purchased by sponsors. And then we would, through the good graces of Glenn Miller, have the ability to use the bucket truck to place them up with the staffing by the borough. We're good to go. And we have a little bit of time urgency to hopefully approve this tonight, so that we could get started soliciting people who may want to sponsor a veteran. We've worked out with the VFW sort of the eligibility. It would be restricted to veterans who've served in conflict, as opposed to just any veteran. And that's primarily because of space. We really only have space for 44 banners.
They have to be from Bernardsville?
So they have to be from Bernardsville. The one caveat there is that if it's a World War I veteran, when Bernardsville and Basking Ridge and Liberty Corner and all those were all one town, if they'd gone to Bernards High School, even if they ended up living in what is now Bernards Township, that would be eligible. We'd have to have a picture of them, which does present a problem for some of the World War I vets, because right now we haven't been able to locate in the public records any photos of those vets, so hopefully the families would have some. But we're pretty good for World War II, Korea, Vietnam, etc. With the help of the VFW, who would then also use their resources to double check to make sure that somebody who says they were a veteran actually was. So
And
that's
you're shooting for veterans.
yeah,
Day.
so we approve it now, that we can get things going, and then by October 1, we'll be ready to order the banners, and then it should take approximately 3 weeks to make, and then we'd be ready for November 1.
And then you'd have them up again for Memorial Day and 4th of July, was that
Correct.
kind of the plan? For how long at a time?
The proposal would be for either the month of December, and then from mid-May through mid-July.
Sorry, it was month of November?
November, I'm sorry, November. Month of November, and then come the Memorial Day, mid-May through mid-July. And then that also, does a couple things. One is it reduces the wear and tear on the banners from the sun damage and such, so that they stay fresh. It keeps things from being taken for granted. Things get old when they're there all the time. And then lastly, it would allow for other banners, for other uses to, as we said, a precedent to be done.
I have a question. We're not really purchasing them with borough money. This is coming from sponsors, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And the way the money would be funneled, we actually, I've been working with Leslie Roberson in finance here. We create a trust fund, and then the money gets funneled through into that trust fund. It could either be money given specifically. I'm going to make this number up because we don't have the exact price yet. We'll say $40 for a banner. Or they could just donate money and say, I just want to put money in, and if there happens to be a family that couldn't afford a banner for a particular veteran, for example.
One other question, if we end up with 88 banners and 44 spaces, is there a plan to rotate or how we would do that? Would be alphabetical?
Two sides.
Yeah. So we did work that out with the VFW in terms of a rotational type plan. And just briefly, that plan gives preference to any veterans who were killed in action or died of wounds, especially during the Memorial Day month.
Jeff, isn't the 44 really 88 because you've got two sides?
No, we have, it's 22. Is it 42? Yeah, no, we have, it would be both sides. That's because I think we have 22 poles.
Oh, okay.
So 44.
Yeah.
Got it.
Storage of them.
Sorry?
Who would store them in the off-months?
Where we store them? Ralph?
We'll store them here at the borough. We'll find a place in Public Works, safe place to store.
Do the brackets stay up year-round?
No, I don't believe so, no.
I think they
Should
should.
they do stay? Oh, yeah, I guess because they're going to be used for other banners.
Right.
Well, I think one of the things we talked about in the Cultural Arts Committee was maybe not doing other, we were right? We were talking about maybe then not having other things up because then people stop looking at them, that maybe that should be the main focus.
It's not special anymore if you have banners for everything, no
Those
demand.
proposals would have to come to the council, so we could decide that if and when another
Because we
proposal
said,
comes up.
sometimes people stop looking when there's always something up there.
But I could, I could foresee, however, that other things come up, for the week of graduation, congratulations, graduates, that kind of thing.
I wouldn't like to rule out the possibility, but say we would
that.
consider them on a case-by-case basis or something.
Yeah, 'cause we
And,
don't want
something that goes up for
everybody-
1 month, 1 year is not the same as something that goes up every
In a
every
couple of years,
July.
they're
or
coming
It's
up
every-
on
just
the 100th
because
anniversary of the
labor
town.
intensive putting them up and down too.
There'll be festivities when we have our anniversary year.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna have an anniversary here. Okay, thank you so much for your work on that, Jeff. It's great to see this actually coming to fruition, so that's terrific.
So I think we need to have our approval for the.
I think, is everyone good with this?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you're good.
We'll make it it's a resolution that we would have to adopt for it, I believe, so that would
We
be.
need an official resolution?
Yeah, there was one in the packet, so that would be number 179.
Oh, that's to create the
Oh,
trust.
that was the trust fund,
That's what
that's
we need
what
to
I
do,
saw,
yeah.
yes, okay.
So we need to do that.
All right, so you
We'll do
wanna-
that next meeting.
No, we can do
I
it
think
right
we-
now.
I think we should
Right
do it
now.
now so we can get.
We want to do that now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't have the number.
Just say-
Anthony,
It'll be
179.
Okay, so I move that we approve resolution 179 to create the funding, the trust mechanism for funding the banners.
Second.
I'll second.
Sorry.
Roll call?
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Merrick?
Yes.
Okay, and then next we had a request for the high school to have decals, parking decals at the library. They are requesting 15. Last year we gave them 10. The chief is recommending that we do 10 again. Are we good with that?
Good with that?
Good with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, they tie up spots for a whole day, so I
Yeah.
think unless there was a clear and present reason for increasing them, I'd keep it at 10.
Yes, do we need to do anything or just?
Just council consent to 10.
Yes, okay. Proposed ordinance, this was, Jeff had brought this forward of looking at, restricting the retail electronic smoking device establishments, which are your vaping.
No vape shops. Like saying no vape shops.
Well, it's a little more
It's a little more involved,
specific.
but I would like us to send this again to the.
He did.
Already done,
Health Department and also Public Safety.
already done.
Okay, so you're gonna review it at your next meeting?
Monday.
Okay,
Yeah, so
and then,
the salient features of this, and I've already sent the language to Mr. Pigeon to write up, but obviously we can amend it if there are other suggestions. But it basically creates a licensure mechanism for any retail sale, any store that wants to sell e-cigarettes or paraphernalia. No employee in that store could be under age 21, which is the age set for use of those products by the state. The state doesn't, there are prohibitions against sales, but this would prohibit giving or gifting the items to a minor. There would be no sales within 500 feet of a school or a park or a recreational area. And maybe more importantly, most importantly, it asks for zoning to, and it defines what a vape shop is, but the zoning would prohibit any vape shop in the business area.
Board of Health already did talk about this topic, so this is good that it's coming.
so now you have the language.
Yeah, no, that'd be
And,
good.
I think we also need the, Public Safety and the police to review the enforcement.
Yeah, I've already sent it to Chief Valentine.
Yeah, because we need, if there's an enforcement piece, we'd like them to weigh in
So,
on.
and also I've been working with Community in Crisis on the language. They've been very helpful getting sample ordinances from other towns. This basically was culled from ordinances that exist in Morristown, Montgomery, and Livingston.
The state of New York passed one today too, the whole state.
Who did, the whole state of New York? Wow.
Well, Morristown has vape shops though.
Sorry?
Morristown does have vape shops.
Well, what their new ordinance is, which they passed a month or two ago, is so heavily restricted that within, whatever, 60, 90 days of that ordinance, they're not gonna be able to sell.
So this affects, you're not grandfathered if you're already doing it, like.
No, because.
No, you have
it's a
60 days to
public-
comply.
It's a general welfare ordinance.
So they have to
as opposed
comply.
a zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Actually, I wrote 30 days, in my draft, I had 30 days to comply. Morristown is 60 days to comply.
So there's a
But
shop there.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, no, it's good.
There's where I park sometimes, I park near one, and just because it's my vendors next door, so if they have 60 days, they're gonna be.
No, you're right. You're right. What Morristown did was focus on the sale, not the vape shop. So they actually, I think that's a flaw in their ordinance. They did not prohibit vape shops. What they've done is, they've made it incredibly restrictive to sale. For example, you can't sell a vaping or e-cigarette material in any venue that serves food or sells food. So I've taken a different approach in this, and we can make it pretty restrictive without, doing that. And plus, I think the more important thing is to eliminate the vape shop, which their ordinance does not do.
Okay.
All right. So we can hopefully introduce that at the next meeting? Okay.
That's the plan.
All righty. We are next up to mayor's update. As Olivia had said before, the community meeting was changed from the 17th to October 16th. So we're just gonna, it hadn't been promoted yet, so now we'll start promoting that.
So
date.
actually, there is already a program that evening at the library, so are they gonna move that?
Well, we're at the school, we're not at the
Oh,
library.
okay, oh, I got you.
Yeah,
It was
we'll
at
be
the
in the
library.
school cafeteria, the high school
Okay.
cafeteria. And then the follow-up meeting will be November 18th, which will be here at Borough Hall. I think we have to check with Anthony, but I think we're good on that. Just a reminder, the 9/11 ceremony is at the library on Wednesday at 6:30. And I wanted to commend our staff, Ralph, Doug, and Leslie, for a clean audit with no recommendations. Thank you very much. That's always good news to get that, so thank you. And then I will be serving on the Somerset County 2020 Census Complete Count Committee. Doesn't that sound exciting? So, yeah, they're having their first meeting this month. So I will get back to you on whatever it is that we're required to do to make sure we get our census count done. There's no end to the fun in this job, let me tell you.
Where's the location for the 9/11 ceremony?
It's usually outside the library, there's in the front, but last year we had to go inside because it rained, but they try and do it outside. 6:30. So it's always nice to have a crowd there, for the families that come. Okay, correspondence, we had a letter about our municipal alliance grant, which is wonderful. We have $10,000 to do, again, the intergenerational social, which I went to this year, mainly because I qualify. And it was wonderful, it's a great event. We get to, and the Youth Summit and the Be Well Girls program, which I think they've all done in the past, so we get to do them all and keep them going, so that's great. That's done through the Alliance, right, the Municipal Alliance. Next was, the Polo Grounds, yes. We had a request from a resident to use a metal detector in the Polo Grounds.
Why do you need the permission for that? That's just a recreational hobby.
That's what I thought, but I guess,
But if you find something to dig up the polo ground.
he wanted to, and he said he was not going to dig.
So whatever's.
What's the point of?
You don't need permission for that. You can do any, in fact, it'd be great if you did it. And nothing metal would be on the field.
So, I don't know what, does anybody have a problem with him using?
I asked, I would ask him to do
I
it.
don't understand. He wants to use a metal detector to walk around and find something but not dig it up.
Well, no, it's something on the surface, he
He
said.
wrote in what he.
Then go ahead and do it. Bottle caps, all that stuff.
Set up the Stevens Avenue.
The question is, if you find something of value, does that belong to us? Finders
No,
keepers?
that's
What
why-
does that mean?
I guess if we give him permission, then no.
I don't think you need permission for that. It's like going, it's like I need permission to go for a walk with my dog. It's the same thing.
Yeah, or people walk along the beach
We
with
should
them
say
all the
nothing.
time.
If he finds a Rolex, it's mine.
We should say nothing, I think.
He can just do it. I don't need permission for that.
We shouldn't say yes or no. We should
No,
say
we just, let it go. Sure, go have a good time, okay.
Starts digging, we have a problem.
Unfinished, I don't think we have anything unfinished, do we? New business, I just wanted to ask, I was talking to Anthony about this today, we have a meeting, our December meeting, on the night of December 23rd.
No good.
Which I thought was not gonna be, it's the day before Christmas Eve, and if we're here till who knows what. So we talked about possibly moving it to the Thursday before, cause it's still late enough in the month to get, and if
What
we.
date would that be?
19th?
Sorry,
What's the
the
date?
19th, yes.
19th.
It's a Thursday the 19th, the planning board is not meeting, so this room would be available. And it's not like right on top of the holiday. And again, it's easier for the public to come and we're not. So suggestion, if people wanna check their calendar, just cause we'd have to
I
notice
know
the
I can't
change.
make it, that we're away for the holidays, so.
So we have,
Right,
we
the
have a meeting,
23rd, you wouldn't
Yeah, we
be
leave the
there?
19th, so back to 31st.
so we have a meeting on the 9th.
23rd either.
No, I don't do, we're going to UK, so.
Okay,
I don't have everything I need. I think I'm okay.
So neither date is good for you.
Yeah, from the
Right.
19th to 31st.
you're done.
I'm
That's what I
fine
was
on-
afraid of.
That you gotta do.
I'm fine on the 23rd, and I think I'm okay on the 19th.
I prefer the
I didn't-
19th.
I have something, but I don't know if it's the 12th or the 19th.
I don't know. I'm here, I think, right now. I don't have anything planned.
Okay, so maybe we can try and do that then.
19th is fine.
Do you want me to notice it for the
We can't
19th?
do the, Monday, the planning board has a meeting?
Yeah, Board of Adjustment is
Adjustment.
here on Monday.
We can't do the 17th?
I don't know if that's too close to the previous meeting.
We-
Oh,
We could, but if we introduce an ordinance on the 9th,
Yeah, then
we
you
couldn't.
can't.
When we publish it in the Bernardsville News on the 12th, then we couldn't adopt it at the public hearing on the 17th.
But we could on the 19th.
Because it has to be 7 days.
Yeah. we'd give
Unless
us-
it's like one of those 10-day ordinance.
Did we always have two regular meetings, or just the 8
We've always had, we have had an 8 a.m. one in December.
I can't make
at
those.
some point. Last year we did, because Christmas Eve fell on a Monday, and Christmas Day was on Tuesday.
Because we can't introduce any ordinances.
Oh, right, because it's the end of the year
End
and
of
you
the year.
can't have a
So
second
basically,
thing.
it's to pay bills and close out business for the year.
So let's just leave it on the evening of the
I could,
19th.
if that was the case, I could call and hold a
So
regular
if we,
meeting,
yeah,
right?
in case anything
I
comes
could
up.
call that, I suppose, it wasn't, because it's not a scheduled meeting, I mean, you have to be ahead of,
Do you wanna
So
do-
is the concept cancel it all together, and then if we need it, we'll put a meeting on to pay the bills?
Well, we don't even
I
have to
just
do
don't see
that.
we're gonna need 2 full meetings, it's up to you all, because like I said, we can't introduce any new business at the second.
Well, we
meeting.
don't even actually have to have it, because we can do on the first meeting, the resolution that we just did saying we give you permission to pay bills
Yes.
subject to review of the finance
Right,
committee.
but if we needed it, we could schedule a special meeting for 8 AM. I think that's what we did last year, isn't it?
I could do 8 AM.
8 AM.
I hate 8 AM.
Oh, I like 8 AM.
And just not have the meeting on the, like a full meeting at all?
Like in the summer, that's what we do.
That's what was done last year.
Yeah.
There was
Some
2
people-
meetings, but the second one was an 8 AM meeting.
Just to pay bills?
Basically.
Well, yeah, but there were other things.
There might be something that's a second reading that day.
That's right.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
I
potentially
think
something on
I'd
the
be more
agenda.
comfortable
Do
with
something
having
like-
like a real meeting, just, you know, in case we have something
there
that
could
we
be
need.
something
Well, I can do 8 o'clock that
Postponed from
day. I don't
November.
know if I can
Yeah.
do it night.
Just
The
like we
19th?
postpone things now.
I don't know.
The
if I can do it
19th.
night. I have something either the 12th or the 19th. I don't remember which date, and I didn't
Oh.
write it down, so I don't
Well, we don't have to decide, we have time to decide.
Let's talk about this on the 23rd, when we meet
Yeah,
again.
so
The
check,
19th still leaves 12 days though afterwards.
Why don't we do it on the 19th, and
Pretty early.
if we don't need it, we'll just have a big party and invite the whole town.
there you go, well, I'll just go out for drinks for the
No,
holiday.
come here. So funny.
Well, just, you know, check your calendars, look at what you got, and we'll talk about it, because we have enough time to notice it, so I just wanted to bring that up, because I was looking at the dates and it's,
So I'll put that on the next meeting.
yeah,
More
as
discussion on
for a
that.
discussion, we'll talk about it. That was the only new business thing I had. Right? Okay, so now we have closed session. Somebody wanna move for closed session?
I will move.
Second.
Okay, voice vote, so yes, all in favor, we're doing collective bargaining, contract negotiations, anticipated litigation, and do we need to reopen? Or not, we're not, no, okay, so then we're done. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you for coming. Always appreciate having the public here. Thank you.
Aye.
All right.
I will be here tomorrow.